When 47-year-old Serena Whitmore walked into her childhood bedroom on Christmas Eve, she carried two secrets: a fragile pregnancy after years of devastating loss, and the growing suspicion that her husband, Adrian Valente, New York's most feared crime boss, was destroying her from the inside out. What she found instead was worse than any nightmare: her husband's lips on her sister's hands tangled in his hair, and in that crystalline moment of betrayal, something inside Serena didn't break. It calcified into something far more dangerous. Stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and comment your city so I can see how far this tale of betrayal and redemption travels. The Whitmore family estate looked like something from a fairy tale that Christmas Eve. Snow had been falling since dawn, transforming the Georgian mansion's sprawling grounds into a winter wonderland. Tiny white lights wrapped around every branch of the ancient oaks lining the circular drive. Through the tall windows, Serena could see the massive Christmas tree in the great room, at least 15 feet of Fraser fir draped in gold ribbon and antique ornaments that had belonged to her grandmother. It should have been perfect. It should have been the homecoming she'd dreamed about during those long, lonely nights in the Manhattan penthouse she shared with Adrian. Instead, Serena sat in her Mercedes in the circular drive, hands trembling on the steering wheel, fighting the urge to turn around and drive back to the city, back to the cool marble and chrome of their apartment, where at least the emptiness was honest, where she didn't have to pretend everything was fine when her marriage was crumbling like sand through her fingers. She pressed one hand against her still flat stomach, a gesture that had become almost unconscious over the past 2 months. 2 months of secret doctor's appointments. 2 months of cautious, terrified hope. 2 months of not telling Adrian because she couldn't bear to see that flicker of doubt in his eyes again. The unspoken question that had haunted them through 3 miscarriages and 2 failed IVF attempts. Are you capable of giving me an heir? At 47, Serena knew the statistics, knew every cruel probability that her doctors had carefully explained, knew that Adrian, only 42 and from a world where power and legacy were everything, could have chosen a younger wife, a more fertile wife, a wife whose body didn't betray her at every turn. But he'd chosen her. 10 years ago, at a charity gala, he'd looked at her across a crowded ballroom with those ice-blue eyes, and something had shifted in the universe. She'd been a corporate lawyer then, successful and independent, wearing her late 30s with confidence. She'd known who Adrian Valente was. Everyone in New York knew the Valente name, even if they pretended not to understand what it really meant. She should have run. Instead, she'd fallen. "Get it together, Serena," she whispered to herself, checking her reflection in the rearview mirror. Her dark hair was pulled back in a sleek chignon, a few strands of silver threaded through that she'd stopped coloring 2 years ago. Her makeup was flawless. It had to be. In Adrian's world, appearance was armor. Weakness was blood in the water. She looked composed, elegant, the perfect wife of a powerful man. She looked like a woman who had no idea her world was about to detonate. Serena gathered her Louis Vuitton overnight bag and the carefully wrapped gifts she'd brought: cashmere for her mother, rare scotch for her father, a vintage Hermes scarf for Liana. She paused at that last one, feeling a strange flutter of unease she couldn't quite name. Her sister. Her beautiful, brilliant, perpetually restless baby sister. Liana had been staying at the family estate for the past month, according to their mother's chatty phone calls. Something about needing space to think and reassessing her priorities. At 39, Liana had blown through 2 marriages, 3 careers, and more of their parents' money than Serena wanted to calculate. But she was still the baby, still indulged and forgiven and welcomed home with open arms. Serena had learned long ago not to resent it. Liana was Liana, wild and impulsive and somehow always landing on her feet. They'd been close once, back when they were girls, before life and choices and the weight of expectations had wedged distance between them. Maybe this Christmas could begin to repair that distance. Maybe. The front door flew open and her mother appeared, elegant in a cream cashmere sweater and pearls, arms outstretched in welcome. "Serena, darling, I was starting to worry you'd changed your mind." Serena forced a smile and climbed out of the car, letting herself be enveloped in her mother's familiar embrace. Chanel No. 5 and warmth and the soft clink of gold bracelets. Traffic was terrible, she lied. In truth, she'd sat in a coffee shop in Greenwich for 90 minutes, staring at her phone, willing Adrian to call, to text, to give her some reason to believe that the distance between them was temporary, fixable. He hadn't. "Where's Adrian?" her mother asked, pulling back to study Serena's face with those sharp maternal eyes that saw too much. "He had business. He'll try to come tomorrow." Another lie. Adrian had told her 3 days ago that he wouldn't be joining her for Christmas. Too much happening with the family. And when Adrian said family, he didn't mean in-laws and turkey dinner. He meant his other family, the one built on blood and loyalty and violence that Serena had agreed to marry into, even as she told herself she could somehow stay separate from it. "That man works too hard," her mother said, but there was something careful in her tone, something that suggested she suspected the real reason for Adrian's absence and had chosen not to voice it. "Well, come in. Your father's in his study pretending to work, and Liana's upstairs. She'll be so happy to see you." Serena followed her mother into the house, breathing in the familiar scents of her childhood, pine and cinnamon, wood smoke from the fireplace, the faint mustiness of old books from her father's library. The great room was even more beautiful than it had looked from outside, all the Whitmore family Christmas traditions on full display. Stockings hung from the marble mantel, including one with her name embroidered in gold thread, still, even though she hadn't lived here in nearly 20 years. "I put you in your old room," her mother said, leading her up the curved staircase. "I know you probably think it's silly, but it just feels right having you back where you belong." Where you belong. The words echoed in Serena's mind as they climbed to the second floor. Did she belong here in this carefully preserved shrine to her childhood? Or did she belong in Adrian's world of late-night meetings and coded phone calls and the very careful dance of being married to power? Or did she belong nowhere at all? "I need to check on dinner," her mother said when they reached the second-floor landing. "Liana's been helping me plan the menu. She's developed quite the interest in cooking lately. Can you believe it? Your sister, who once burned water." Serena managed a laugh that felt only slightly forced. "Miracles do happen." "Indeed they do," her mother said, squeezing her arm. "I'm so glad you're home, sweetheart. It's been too long." Then she was gone, heels clicking back down the stairs, leaving Serena alone in the hallway of her childhood. Her old bedroom was at the end of the corridor, past Liana's room and the guest suite, and the storage room that still held boxes of their old school projects and childhood toys their mother couldn't bear to throw away. Serena walked slowly down the familiar hallway, overnight bag in one hand, trailing the other along the silk wallpaper her mother had chosen during a renovation 15 years ago. Family photos lined the walls. Serena and Liana as gap-toothed children, Serena's law school graduation, Liana's first wedding, the Whitmore family portrait taken the year before everything changed. She paused in front of her wedding photo. She and Adrian on the courthouse steps. They'd married quickly, quietly, over her parents' initial objections. Adrian in a charcoal suit, herself in a simple cream dress, both of them smiling. She remembered that day so clearly. The way he'd held her hand like she was something precious. The way he'd promised her everything without saying a word. When had that changed? When had his touch become perfunctory? When had the space in their bed grown so wide she might as well have been sleeping alone? When had she become so invisible to her own husband? Serena shook off the thought and continued down the hallway. She was being paranoid. Hormonal, probably. Pregnancy did that. The distance with Adrian was just stress. Just the pressure of their attempts to conceive, the weight of disappointment. Once she told him about the baby, if this pregnancy lasted, if she made it past the 12-week mark that had been her ceiling before, everything would change. It had to. She reached her old bedroom door, which stood slightly ajar. Warmth and light spilled into the hallway. Her mother must have already turned on the lamps, made sure everything was ready for her arrival. Serena pushed the door open, stepping into the room that had been hers from age 7 until she'd left for law school. The same pale blue walls, the same antique white furniture, the same... She stopped. The overnight bag slipped from her fingers, hitting the hardwood floor with a muffled thud. Because there, on her childhood bed, the white iron daybed with its Laura Ashley quilt that she'd picked out when she was 12, were 2 people. Kissing. Not just kissing. Devouring each other. The woman's hands tangled in the man's dark hair. The man's hands gripping her waist with a possessiveness that Serena recognized because she had once been on the receiving end of that touch. Adrian. Her husband. And the woman in his arms, the woman making soft sounds of pleasure against his mouth, the woman wearing Serena's high school cheerleading t-shirt like some kind of sick joke, Liana, her sister. Time seemed to suspend itself. Serena stood frozen in the doorway, her brain struggling to process what her eyes were seeing. This couldn't be real. This was some kind of nightmare, some stress-induced hallucination brought on by hormones and fear, and Adrian pulled back from Liana, murmuring something too low for Serena to hear. Liana laughed, that bright musical laugh that had always gotten her out of trouble, always charmed everyone around her, and said, "We should stop. She'll be here soon." "Let her come," Adrian replied, his voice rough with desire. "I don't care anymore." And that was when Serena understood. This wasn't the first time. This wasn't some momentary lapse, some drunken mistake at a party. This was an affair, an ongoing, deliberate betrayal in her childhood bedroom on Christmas Eve. Something inside Serena made a sound, a small, broken noise that she didn't recognize as her own voice until both figures on the bed jerked apart, turning toward the door. Adrian's ice-blue eyes met hers. For one second, one crystalline, eternal second, she saw shock flicker across his face. Then it smoothed into something worse than shock, something like relief. "Serena," he said, just her name, flat and emotionless, as if she'd walked in on him reading the newspaper instead of kissing her sister. Liana scrambled off the bed, her face flushed, her long blonde hair disheveled. "Rena, we didn't mean for you to—" "How long?" Serena's voice came out steady, calm. She barely recognized it as her own. Her hand moved unconsciously to her stomach, protective, shielding the tiny life that Adrian didn't even know existed from this moment of destruction. "Serena, let me explain," Adrian said, standing. He had the audacity to try to smooth his hair, to straighten his shirt, as if appearance mattered now, as if anything mattered now. "How long?" Each word fell like a stone into still water. Liana and Adrian exchanged a glance. A whole conversation passed between them in that look, and Serena felt something crack inside her chest. This was intimacy. This was the kind of silent communication that should exist between a husband and wife, not between a husband and his wife's sister. 6 months, Adrian finally said. "Since June." 6 months. Serena's mind reeled. June. That was when she'd had the second failed IVF. When she'd come home from the clinic, devastated, and Adrian had told her he needed to go to Atlantic City for a week on business. When she'd spent 7 days alone in their penthouse, grieving the child that had never been, while he— "I came here," Liana said, her voice small, "to the estate. I was having problems with Marcus, my ex-husband, and Mom said I could stay for a while. Adrian came to check on me on behalf of the family. On behalf of the family." The words were so absurd that Serena almost laughed. Adrian didn't do courtesy calls. Adrian didn't check on anyone unless there was a reason, an angle, a purpose. "And what?" Serena heard herself say. "You just fell into bed together? Is that the story you're going with?" "Don't be crude," Adrian said sharply. "It's more complicated than that." "Then uncomplicate it for me." Serena took a step into the room. Her room. Her childhood room where she'd dreamed of her future, where she'd planned her life, where she'd believed in happy endings. "Explain to me how you ended up fucking my sister." Liana flinched at the profanity. Adrian's jaw tightened. "You want honesty?" he said. "Fine. You and I both know this marriage has been over for a long time, Serena. We've been going through the motions, playing house, pretending we're something we're not." "We're married," Serena said. "We took vows." "In my world, marriage is a business arrangement," Adrian replied. "You knew that when you agreed to this. The personal feelings, they fade. They always fade. So you sought comfort with my sister." "I sought someone who understands me, someone who doesn't look at me like I'm a stranger in my own home, someone who isn't so wrapped up in her own disappointments that she can't see I'm drowning too." The words hit like physical blows, each one precisely aimed, devastatingly effective. This was Adrian in negotiation mode, Adrian in confrontation, cold and clinical and choosing his weapons with care. "My disappointments," Serena repeated softly. "You mean our inability to have children." I mean the way you've made that your entire identity for the past 3 years. The way every conversation, every moment, every decision revolves around what you can't do, what you can't give me. What I can't give you, Serena echoed. Her hand tightened on her stomach, a gesture both of them missed because they weren't looking at her anymore. They were looking at each other. Her husband and her sister, united in their betrayal, in their shared narrative of how Serena had somehow driven them to this. I should go, Liana said, moving toward the door. Stay, Serena commanded, and something in her voice made both of them freeze. I want you here for this conversation. I want you to own what you've done. Liana stopped, shifting her weight, looking anywhere but at Serena. She'd always been beautiful, the kind of effortless golden beauty that drew people like moths. Where Serena was all sharp angles and careful elegance, Liana was soft curves and easy smiles. Men had always loved her. Women had always wanted to be her. And now she'd taken the one thing that was supposed to be Serena's alone. Were you ever going to tell me? Serena asked. Yes, Adrian said. No, Liana said at the same time. They looked at each other again. Another conversation in a glance. Yes, Adrian repeated, his voice firm. I was going to talk to you after the holidays. This wasn't how I wanted you to find out. How considerate of you. Serena, don't. She held up a hand. Don't say my name like that. Like you care. Like you have any right to my name in your mouth after you've had hers. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. Downstairs, Serena could hear her mother humming in the kitchen. The sound of normal life continuing on, oblivious to the fact that Serena's world had just imploded. I want a divorce, Adrian said. Of course he did. Of course this moment, this discovery, had been leading to this. Serena should have been devastated, should have been on her knees, begging, pleading. That's what the old Serena would have done. The Serena who had loved him so desperately that she'd ignored every red flag, every warning sign, every whisper about what kind of man he really was. But standing here, watching her husband and her sister avoid her eyes like guilty children, Serena felt something shift inside her. Something fundamental and irreversible. She thought of the baby growing inside her. Adrian's child. The heir he'd been demanding for years. The legacy he'd married her to provide. He didn't know. He just asked for a divorce without knowing that she was finally, miraculously pregnant. That she was carrying the one thing that made her valuable in his world. And suddenly, looking at him with Liana's lipstick still visible on his collar, Serena realized something crucial. She held all the cards. She just had to decide how to play them. No, she said quietly. Adrian's head snapped up. What? I said no. I'm not giving you a divorce. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. Serena walked further into the room, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. She moved with deliberate grace, the way Adrian had taught her to move in his world, like a queen, like someone who belonged in rooms where power was currency. You don't get to cheat on me with my sister, and then demand I make it easy for you. Serena, be reasonable. Reasonable? She laughed, and the sound was nothing like her usual carefully modulated tone. It was sharp and broken and real. You're asking me to be reasonable. That's rich. In my world, Adrian said, his voice taking on an edge that Serena recognized as danger. Marriage is a contract. Contracts can be dissolved when they no longer serve their purpose. Then dissolve it, Serena challenged. File the papers. Drag our marriage through the courts. Let everyone in your world know that Adrian Valente couldn't keep his wife happy, that he had to turn to her younger, prettier sister. I'm sure that will do wonders for your reputation. She watched the words land, watched Adrian's eyes narrow as he calculated the angles. In his world, the world of the Valente family and their vast criminal empire, reputation was everything. Appearance was armor, showing weakness, showing poor judgment, showing that you couldn't control your own house. That was blood in the water. You wouldn't, he said. Try me. They stared at each other across the room that had once been Serena's safe haven. Two people who had promised to love each other, to honor each other, to build a life together. Two people who had become strangers playing a game of chess with each other's hearts. Reina, Liana said softly, please, don't make this harder than it has to be. Adrian and I, we're in love. Real love. The kind you read about. Serena turned to her sister slowly, took in the pleading expression, the hands clasped together like prayer, the tears gathering in those big blue eyes that had gotten Liana out of trouble since she was 6 years old. The kind I read about, Serena repeated. Tell me, Liana, in those romance novels you're so fond of, does the heroine usually steal her sister's husband? Is that how the fairy tale goes? It's not like that. Then enlighten me. What is it like? Liana's mouth opened and closed. For once in her life, she seemed to have no words, no charm, no easy explanation that would make everything okay. You want to know what I think? Serena continued, her voice deadly calm. I think you've always been jealous of me, always wanted what I had. Not because you actually wanted it, but because you couldn't stand that I had something you didn't. That's not fair. Fair. Serena's voice rose for the first time. You want to talk about fair? I introduced you to Adrian at our wedding. You stood up as my maid of honor and smiled and toasted our happiness. And now you're fucking him in my childhood bedroom. Tell me about fair, Liana. She didn't pursue me, Adrian interjected. If you're going to blame someone, blame me. Oh, I do, Serena assured him. I blame you for every minute of the last 6 months, for every lie, for every time you came home to me after being with her, for every moment you let me believe our marriage meant something. It did mean something, Adrian said. Once. But people change, Serena. Feelings change. You can't force something that's dead. Dead. Serena tasted the word, felt it settle into her bones. Is that what we are? Dead? What else would you call it? When's the last time we had a real conversation? When's the last time you looked at me and saw your husband instead of a sperm donor who kept disappointing you? The cruelty of it stole Serena's breath. She had known Adrian could be cold, his world demanded it, but she'd never thought he would turn that coldness on her, not like this, not with such precision. I see, she said quietly. So this is my fault. My inability to conceive drove you into my sister's arms. That's not what I said. It's what you meant. Silence again. Outside, Serena could hear children singing carols, their voices high and pure in the winter air. It was Christmas Eve, the night before Christmas, the night when anything was supposed to be possible. I'm not giving you a divorce, Serena repeated. Not now, not on your timeline. You want out of this marriage? You're going to have to work for it. Serena, I'm not finished. She held up a hand, stopping him. You're going to go back to the city tonight. You're going to tell anyone who asks that you were called away on business. You're going to give me space and time to decide how I want to handle this. And if you try to force my hand, if you try to pressure me or threaten me or make this public before I'm ready, I will burn your reputation to the ground. I will tell everyone in your precious world that you're weak, that you can't control your own household, that you had to crawl to your wife's baby sister because you couldn't handle a real woman. Adrian's face darkened. For a moment, Serena thought she might have pushed too far, might have forgotten that the man standing in front of her, her husband, her betrayer, was capable of violence when pushed, that his hands, which had once touched her with tenderness, had also pulled triggers and given orders that ended lives. But she was beyond caring, beyond fear. Standing in her childhood bedroom, watching her marriage crumble, Serena discovered a core of steel inside herself that she'd never known existed. You're making a mistake, Adrian said quietly. The only mistake I made was marrying you in the first place. Serena picked up her overnight bag from where she'd dropped it. Now get out, both of you. This is my room, my home. You don't get to defile it anymore. Serena, please, Liana tried again. Can't we talk about this like adults? Adults? Serena laughed bitterly. You want to be treated like an adult, Liana? Then act like one. Own what you've done. Stop making excuses and justifications and pretending you're some kind of victim in this scenario. I never said I was a victim. You didn't have to. It's written all over your face. Poor Liana. Poor, beautiful, beloved Liana, who just couldn't help falling in love with her sister's husband. What a tragedy. What a romance. You're being cruel. I'm being honest. For the first time in months, maybe years, I'm being completely honest. And you can't handle it because you're so used to everyone protecting you from the consequences of your actions. Liana's face crumpled, real tears now, streaming down her perfect cheeks. Once upon a time, that would have broken Serena. would have made her rush to comfort, to soothe, to make everything better, because that was her role in the family, the responsible one, the one who fixed things, not anymore. Adrian, Liana said, turning to him, seeking rescue. But Adrian was staring at Serena with an expression she couldn't quite read. Surprise, maybe. Reassessment. In 10 years of marriage, she had never stood up to him like this, had never challenged him, had never shown the steel beneath her careful, elegant surface. "We should go," he finally said to Liana. "But now." Adrian moved toward the door, and after a moment's hesitation, Liana followed. They had to pass Serena to leave, and for one brief second they were close enough to touch, close enough for Serena to smell her sister's perfume on her husband's skin, close enough for Adrian to lean in and murmur, "This isn't over." "No," Serena agreed, "it's not." Then they were gone, footsteps echoing down the hallway, leaving Serena alone in her childhood room with the wreckage of her marriage scattered around her like broken glass. She stood very still, listening to the sounds of the house. Her mother's humming had stopped. Had she heard? Did she know? Would Serena have to face her family and explain what had just happened? The thought made her suddenly, overwhelmingly tired. Serena sank onto the edge of the bed where her husband had been kissing her sister, and finally let herself feel the betrayal, the rage, the grief, the fear. And underneath it all, the fierce, protective love for the child growing inside her, the child that was supposed to fix everything, the child that made her valuable in Adrian's world, the child that Adrian didn't know about. Serena pressed both hands to her stomach, feeling nothing yet but knowing life was there, growing, depending on her, needing her to be strong. "I won't let them hurt you," she whispered to the baby. "I won't let them take you from me. I won't let them win." It was a promise, a vow, more sacred than any wedding oath she'd spoken to Adrian. And as Serena sat in her childhood room on Christmas Eve, watching snow fall past the window, she began to understand something crucial. She wasn't the weak, desperate woman Adrian thought she was. She wasn't the invisible wife who could be discarded for a younger model. She was a mother now, a mother with everything to protect. And in Adrian's world, a world built on blood and loyalty and legacy, nothing was more dangerous than a mother who had something to lose. Serena didn't go downstairs for dinner that night. She sent her mother a text claiming a migraine. Not entirely a lie, given the pounding in her temples that had started the moment Adrian and Liana left her room. Her mother responded with concerned emojis and a promise to bring up some chamomile tea, but Serena texted back that she just needed sleep. What she needed was time to think, time to plan, time to decide what the hell she was going to do with the bomb that had just detonated in her life. She lay in her childhood bed as darkness fell, staring at the ceiling she'd stared at 1,000 times as a girl. Back then, her biggest worries had been college applications, and whether Tommy Brennan would ask her to prom. Simple problems with simple solutions. She'd had her whole life mapped out. Law school, partnership at a prestigious firm, marriage to someone safe and predictable. 2.5 children and a house in the suburbs. Instead, she'd fallen for a man whose world operated by rules she'd never fully understood. A man who'd promised her everything and delivered betrayal. Her phone buzzed. Adrian's name lit up the screen. She stared at it for 3 rings before answering. "What?" "We need to talk." His voice was clipped, businesslike, the voice he used in negotiations. "I thought I made myself clear earlier. Serena, I'm trying to be civilized about this. Don't make it harder than it needs to be." "Civilized," she laughed without humor. "You fucked my sister and you want civilized." A pause. "I'm at the Gramercy. Room 1412. Come to the city tomorrow. Let's discuss this like rational adults." "So you can railroad me into signing divorce papers?" "I don't think so." "I'm not trying to railroad you. I'm trying to find a solution that works for both of us." "Both of us," Serena repeated. "Or all 3 of us? Is Liana there with you?" Silence answered her question. "Unbelievable," she breathed. "You couldn't even give me one night, one Christmas Eve without rubbing my face in it." She had nowhere else to go. "Your parents would have questions if she stayed." "My parents?" "Right. Because we wouldn't want to upset my parents by revealing what their precious baby girl has been doing." "Serena, "Don't call me again tonight," she interrupted. "Don't text me, don't contact me at all unless the building is on fire. And even then, you might want to consider other options." She hung up before he could respond, then turned off her phone entirely. Let him wonder. Let him stew. Let him feel even a fraction of the powerlessness she'd felt walking into that room. But sleep wouldn't come. Serena lay awake as the house settled into nighttime quiet, listening to the familiar creaks and sighs of the old mansion. At midnight, she heard her parents come upstairs, their muffled voices carrying through the walls. At 1 a.m., she heard what sounded like crying from Liana's room, soft, pitiful sobs that probably would have worked on anyone else. At 2 a.m., Serena gave up on sleep entirely. She turned her phone back on, ignoring the 17 missed calls from Adrian and 3 from Liana, and did what any modern woman in crisis does. She Googled how to protect yourself in a divorce from a powerful spouse, how to document infidelity, how to secure assets before separation, New York divorce law, community property, prenuptial agreements. That last one made her stomach sink. She and Adrian had signed a prenup, his lawyers had insisted, and she'd been too in love to care about the details. She pulled up the PDF she'd saved years ago and read through it with lawyer's eyes instead of a bride's. It was worse than she remembered. In the event of divorce, she'd get a modest settlement, enough to live comfortably, but nowhere near the lifestyle she'd grown accustomed to. No claim on any of Adrian's business holdings, no spousal support after 2 years, nothing for infidelity or fault. Unless there were children. Serena's hand moved to her stomach. The prenup had a completely different clause for divorce when children were involved. Generous support, continued lifestyle maintenance, protected assets for the children's benefit. Her child would be worth millions, worth Adrian's reputation, worth leverage. If she told him now, he'd know she was trapped, know that she needed him financially, at least until the baby was born. He'd use it against her, use the pregnancy to control her, to make her compliant. But if she waited, if she let him think she was just being stubborn, if she played this smart. Serena sat up, mind racing. She opened a new browser tab and searched for a different kind of information. High-risk pregnancy specialists, the best maternal fetal medicine doctors in New York. Places where she could receive care without Adrian finding out. Because suddenly, keeping this pregnancy secret wasn't just about protecting herself from another loss. It was strategy, it was power, it was survival. When dawn finally broke on Christmas morning, Serena had a plan. Not a complete plan. Not yet. But the beginnings of one. She would go back to the city. She would maintain the appearance of considering Adrian's demands. She would watch and wait and gather information. And she would protect her child at all costs. She dressed carefully in dark jeans and a cashmere sweater, applied minimal makeup to hide the shadows under her eyes, and went downstairs to face her family. Her mother was already in the kitchen, preparing the elaborate Christmas brunch that was Whitmore tradition. She looked up when Serena entered, concern written across her face. "Sweetheart, how's your head?" "Better," Serena lied. "I'm sorry about last night." "No apology needed. I'm just glad you're here." Her mother paused, hands stilling on the whisk she'd been using to scramble eggs. "Liana left early this morning. She said something came up in the city." Of course she had. Probably ran straight back to Adrian the moment Serena cut off communication. "That's too bad," Serena managed. "Is everything all right between you two? You seemed tense when you arrived yesterday." Serena met her mother's eyes, saw the worry there, the maternal instinct that something was very wrong. For a moment, she considered telling her everything, unburdening herself the way she had as a child, letting her mother fix it with wisdom and warmth. But this wasn't a skinned knee or a bad grade. This was her marriage, her life, her choice to make, and her mother had always had a blind spot where Liana was concerned. Always made excuses, always smoothed things over. "We're fine," Serena said, "just the usual sister stuff." Her mother didn't look convinced, but she let it drop. "Your father wants to do presents after brunch. He's been like a child himself, sneaking around hiding things." The normalcy of it, the ordinariness of Christmas morning with her parents, made Serena want to scream. How could the world just continue when everything had changed? How could there be presents and brunch and holiday traditions when her life was imploding? But she smiled and nodded and helped her mother cook, falling into the familiar rhythms of their kitchen dance. And when her father came downstairs in his ridiculous Santa hat that he'd worn every Christmas since she was 6, she laughed at his jokes and opened her gifts and pretended everything was fine. She was good at pretending. 10 years with Adrian had taught her that. By noon, Serena couldn't take it anymore. She made excuses about work emails, about needing to get back to the city, about Adrian expecting her. Her parents accepted it with disappointed understanding, and her mother packed up leftovers and Tupperware that Serena would probably throw away. The drive back to Manhattan took 3 hours in holiday traffic. 3 hours of planning, strategizing, trying to stay one step ahead of Adrian's next move. By the time she pulled into the parking garage of their building on Central Park West, Serena had made several decisions. First, she would see her doctor immediately after the holidays, get a full workup, ensure the pregnancy was progressing normally, establish care somewhere Adrian would never think to look. Second, she would contact Marcus Reynolds, the only lawyer she knew who wasn't somehow connected to the Valente family network. Marcus owed her a favor from a case they'd worked together 5 years ago. He'd give her honest advice. Third, she would play the role Adrian expected, the hurt wife, the woman who needed time to process. She would give him nothing to work with, no ammunition to use against her. And fourth, she would find out exactly what was going on between Adrian and Liana, because her gut told her this was about more than just an affair. In Adrian's world, nothing was ever that simple. The penthouse felt like a mausoleum when she entered. 2,300 square feet of marble and chrome and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. She'd loved this place once, had felt like a princess in a tower. Now it just felt cold. Evidence of Adrian's morning departure littered the master suite, an unmade bed, towels on the bathroom floor, his phone charger still plugged in by his nightstand. He'd left in a hurry, probably to get back to Liana. Serena changed into comfortable clothes and was making tea when she heard the front door open. "Serena?" Adrian's voice echoed through the apartment. She didn't answer, just poured hot water over her chamomile tea bag and waited. He appeared in the kitchen doorway a moment later, still wearing the same clothes from yesterday, his hair disheveled, eyes bloodshot. He looked like he hadn't slept. "Good. You came back," he said. "I live here." "I wasn't sure you would. After last night." Serena wrapped her hands around her mug, feeling the warmth seep into her palms. "Where else would I go? Your parents don't know anything, and they're not going to. Not yet." Adrian studied her, and she could see him recalibrating. This wasn't the Serena he knew, the accommodating wife who bent to his will. This was someone new, someone he hadn't planned for. "We should talk," he said. "So talk." He moved further into the kitchen, maintaining distance like she was a wild animal that might spook. "I spoke with my attorney this morning." "On Christmas? How festive." "Serena, please, can we have one conversation without the sarcasm? You want civility? Fine. Say what you came to say." Adrian pulled out one of the bar stools and sat, suddenly looking exhausted. "The prenup is clear. In the event of divorce, you receive a settlement of $5 million. The penthouse is mine, but I'll purchase you a comparable apartment anywhere in the city. You keep your car, your jewelry, your personal accounts. We divide any joint assets 50-50. "Generous," Serena said flatly. "It's more than fair. It's more than most people see in a lifetime." "Most people aren't married to you." "No," he agreed. "They're not. Look, I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But dragging this out, making it ugly, that doesn't serve either of us." Serena took a sip of her tea, let the silence stretch, finally asked the question she needed answered. "Why Liana?" Adrian looked away. "Does it matter?" "It matters to me. She's different, lighter. Being with her doesn't feel like drowning." The words cut deeper than Serena expected. "I make you feel like you're drowning. You make me feel like I'm failing. Every time I look at you, I see disappointment. I see everything I can't give you, everything we've lost. So you found someone who doesn't want anything from you. I found someone who wants me. Not my name, not my money, not an heir to carry on some legacy. Just me." Serena wanted to laugh, to scream, to tell him how naive he was if he thought Liana didn't want his money, his power, his status. but she kept her face neutral. "And what does Liana get out of this arrangement?" she asked instead. "What do you mean?" "I mean, my sister doesn't do anything without a reason. She's been married twice, both times to wealthy men. Both times she walked away with a fortune, so what's her angle here?" Adrian's eyes narrowed. "You think she's using me?" "I think she's using both of us. I just can't figure out why yet." "You're being paranoid." "Am I?" "Think about it, Adrian. When did this start? Right after my second failed IVF. Right when I was at my most vulnerable. Right when you were frustrated and angry and questioning everything. That's not coincidence." "So what are you suggesting? That she planned this?" "I'm suggesting that my sister is very good at being exactly what people need her to be. And right now, you need her to be the opposite of me." Adrian stood, agitation clear in every line of his body. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. You analyze everything. You can't just feel something without dissecting it. That's what lawyers do. We analyze. We look for patterns. We find the truth. The truth is that I'm in love with her. That's all the analysis I need." Serena set down her mug carefully. "You're in love with her?" "Yes." "After 6 months?" "Yes." "But you loved me once too. Remember that, Adrian. You loved me enough to marry me, to promise me forever, to tell me I was the only woman you'd ever need. What happened to that love?" "People change." "No," Serena interrupted. "People don't change that much. Not in 10 years, not without a reason." She moved closer to him, studying his face the way she used to study witnesses on the stand. "What happened? What really happened that made you decide our marriage was over?" Adrian's jaw tightened. For a moment she thought he might tell her, might give her the truth she was searching for. Instead, he said, "I want you to sign the papers. I'll have them drawn up after New Year's. We can be done with this by February." "And if I refuse?" "Then I file anyway. You can contest it, drag it through the courts, but the outcome will be the same. The only difference is how much we both suffer in the process." "You'd do that to me, after everything." "I'd do that to free us both. This marriage is over, Serena. Holding on to it is just prolonging the inevitable." She wanted to tell him. Wanted to see his face when she revealed that she was pregnant, that she was carrying the heir he'd always demanded, that everything he thought he knew was about to change. But something held her back. Some instinct that whispered, "Not yet. Not until you understand what's really happening here." "Fine," she said instead. "Have your lawyer draw up the papers. I'll review them." Adrian's expression shifted to surprise. "You'll review them?" "I didn't say I'd sign them. I said I'd review them. I want to see exactly what you think our marriage was worth." "Serena, that's my offer. Take it or leave it." They stared at each other across the kitchen island, two people who'd once shared everything, now separated by a distance that felt oceanic. "All right," Adrian finally said. "I'll have them sent over next week." "Good. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm tired. I'm going to lie down. I need to pack some things. I'll be staying at the Gramercy for now." "How considerate. Don't wake me when you leave." Serena walked to the master bedroom with her spine straight and her head high, every inch the composed woman Adrian had married. Only when she closed the door did she let herself collapse against it, sliding down to the floor as her carefully maintained control shattered. This was real. This was happening. Her marriage was ending, her husband was leaving her for her sister, and she was pregnant with a child whose father didn't want her anymore. The tears came then, hot and angry and helpless. She pressed her hands against her mouth to muffle the sobs, not wanting to give Adrian the satisfaction of hearing her break. But even as she cried, even as grief threatened to overwhelm her, that core of steel remained, that fierce determination to protect what was hers. She heard Adrian moving through the apartment, gathering clothes and toiletries and whatever else he thought he needed for his new life. Heard the front door open and close, heard the silence that followed. Only then did Serena pull herself together. She washed her face, changed into pajamas, and climbed into the bed she'd shared with Adrian for 10 years. The sheets still smelled like him, sandalwood and mint and something uniquely his. Tomorrow, she'd change them. Tomorrow, she'd start erasing him from this space. But tonight, she let herself remember. The way he'd carried her over the threshold of this apartment, the way he'd made love to her like she was precious, the way he'd held her after each miscarriage and promised her they'd try again. Had those moments been real? Or had she been fooling herself all along? Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Not about Adrian. About the real reason I'm here. Meet me tomorrow. 3 p.m. The Met. Egyptian Wing. Come alone. L. Serena stared at the message, reading it 3 times. The real reason I'm here. So she'd been right. There was more to this than just an affair. She should ignore it. Should block Liana's number and never speak to her again. But curiosity, and that lawyer's instinct for finding the truth, wouldn't let her. She typed back one word. Fine. Then she set her phone aside and closed her eyes, one hand resting on her stomach where her secret grew. Whatever game Liana was playing, whatever scheme she'd gotten herself tangled in, Serena would figure it out. She'd always been the smart sister, the careful one, the one who thought 3 steps ahead. And right now she needed to think further ahead than she'd ever thought before, because she wasn't just protecting herself anymore, she was protecting her child. The next morning, Serena woke to an empty apartment and a determination that felt almost foreign. She'd spent 10 years accommodating Adrian's world, adapting to his needs, making herself smaller to fit into the spaces he allowed her. No more. She spent the morning researching maternal-fetal medicine specialists, making notes, cross-referencing reviews. By noon, she'd narrowed it down to 3 doctors, all affiliated with hospitals where Adrian's family had no connections. She'd make appointments after New Year's. At 2:30, she dressed in designer armor, Armani pants, a silk blouse, her Burberry coat, pearl earrings, minimal makeup. The image of a woman in complete control. The Met was crowded with tourists and families enjoying the holiday week. Serena moved through the Greek and Roman galleries toward the Egyptian wing, her heels clicking on the polished floors. She found Liana in front of the Temple of Dendur, staring at the ancient structure like it held answers. You came, Liana said without turning around. You said it was important. It is. Liana finally looked at her, and Serena was startled by how terrible she looked. Dark circles under her eyes, her skin pale, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. This wasn't the glowing other woman. This was someone who was scared. What's going on, Liana? Not here. Too many cameras. There's a cafe on the lower level. No one ever goes there. Serena followed her sister through the museum, down a back staircase to a small cafe that was indeed nearly empty. They chose a table in the corner, far from anyone who might overhear. Talk, Serena commanded. Liana's hands shook as she wrapped them around a paper cup of coffee. I need you to understand something. I didn't want this. Any of this. You seemed pretty willing yesterday in my bedroom. That was... Liana closed her eyes. That was necessary. To keep up appearances. Appearances for who? For Adrian, for Victor, for everyone who's watching. Victor? Serena leaned forward. Victor Marino? Victor Marino was Adrian's underboss, his second in command, a cold, calculating man who'd always made Serena's skin crawl. She'd met him a handful of times at family functions and had gone out of her way to avoid him ever since. How do you know about Victor? Liana asked. I'm married to Adrian. I pay attention. Serena kept her voice low, conscious of even the empty cafe's potential for eavesdropping. What does Victor have to do with you sleeping with my husband? Liana took a shaky breath. Everything. He has everything to do with it. And then, in a rushed whisper, Liana told her the truth. It had started in June, just like Adrian said. But it hadn't started with attraction or chemistry or any of the romantic nonsense Liana had spouted yesterday. It had started with blackmail. Liana's second ex-husband, Marcus, had gambled himself into debt with some very dangerous people. People connected to Victor Marino's crew. When Marcus couldn't pay, they'd come after Liana instead. She'd signed as a guarantor on some of his loans, thinking they were legitimate business ventures. Victor had offered her a deal. Work off the debt by getting close to Adrian, by feeding Victor information about Adrian's operations, his plans, his weaknesses. He wanted me to seduce him, Liana said, tears streaming down her face now. Said Adrian was vulnerable because of your fertility problems. Said a man like that would be easy prey for the right woman. And if I didn't do it, if I didn't help them, they'd kill me. They'd make it look like an accident, and no one would ever know. Serena felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. You're saying this whole affair is staged? Not entirely. Adrian thinks it's real. He thinks we're in love, but I'm just doing what I have to do to stay alive. And the information you're giving, Victor? Business deals, territory disputes, who Adrian's meeting with, when, where. Liana wiped at her eyes with shaking hands. I know it's wrong. I know it's betrayal, but Serena, they showed me pictures of what they do to people who don't cooperate. I was terrified. Why didn't you come to me? To Adrian? To anyone who could actually help? Because Victor said if I told anyone, they'd know. They'd kill me and go after Mom and Dad too. Make it look like a home invasion. He was very specific about the details. Serena's mind raced, sorting through implications and strategies. What does Victor want? What's his end game? He wants to take over. He thinks Adrian's gotten soft, thinks the family needs new leadership, and he wants me to help him find the leverage to make it happen. What kind of leverage? Liana met her eyes. The kind that comes from Adrian getting a divorce, from him looking weak and distracted, from him choosing his mistress over his wife and damaging his reputation with the old guard families who care about that kind of thing. The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. Adrian asking for a divorce, Adrian so eager to formalize his relationship with Liana, Adrian making his private life public in a way that would absolutely damage his standing with the traditional crime families who still valued the appearance of stable marriages. Victor's orchestrating this entire thing, Serena said. The affair, the divorce, all of it. He's using you to destabilize Adrian. Yes, and now he wants more. More what? Liana pulled an envelope from her purse and slid it across the table. He wants you gone. Not just divorced, gone. Serena opened the envelope with numb fingers. Inside was a single photograph of her, leaving a medical building 3 weeks ago. The building where her fertility specialist had an office. He knows you've been seeing Dr. Chen, Liana whispered. He thinks you're still trying to get pregnant. He thinks as long as you're in the picture, as long as there's any chance of an heir, Adrian won't fully commit to the divorce. So he wants to, what, kill me? Not himself, but he mentioned accidents. How easy it would be. How it would devastate Adrian, make him even more vulnerable. Liana grabbed Serena's hand across the table. I couldn't let it happen. Whatever I've done, however I've hurt you, I can't let them kill you. You're my sister. Serena pulled her hand away. You should have thought about that before you climbed into bed with my husband. I know. I know I've ruined everything. But please, Serena, you have to believe me. I never wanted to hurt you. I was just trying to survive. And now? Now Victor's getting impatient. He wants results. He wants Adrian destabilized and distracted before the family council meeting in February. He wants... Liana stopped abruptly, her face going white. What? Serena pressed. He wants what? He wants proof that you can't give Adrian an heir. He wants me to confirm that you're infertile, that there's no hope. So Adrian will stop holding on to the marriage for the sake of a child that will never come. The irony was so brutal that Serena almost laughed. Victor Marino had orchestrated this entire elaborate scheme based on the assumption that she was infertile, that she had no value to Adrian beyond being a wife he'd fallen out of love with. And the truth, the secret growing inside her, would upend everything. What did you tell him? Serena asked carefully. I said I'd find out, that I'd talk to you, get confirmation from the doctors somehow. But Serena, I can't do it anymore. I can't keep lying and manipulating and pretending. I'm not built for this. No, Serena thought, you're not. You're built for being adored and protected and having other people solve your problems. But for once, Liana had brought her a problem that Serena could actually use. All right, Serena said slowly, here's what's going to happen. You're going to go back to Victor and tell him that I'm definitely infertile, that I confess to you that the doctors have given up hope, that I'm a dead end for Adrian's legacy. But you're going to continue your affair with Adrian. You're going to be everything Victor wants you to be, and you're going to report back to me, not him, on everything Victor asks for. I don't understand. You don't have to understand. You just have to trust me. Serena leaned forward, her voice hard. Can you do that, Liana? Can you trust me to fix the mess you've made? Liana stared at her with wide, desperate eyes. You have a plan. I'm working on one, but I need information. I need to know exactly what Victor's planning. and I need you to be my eyes and ears inside this conspiracy. And if I do this, if I help you, will you forgive me?" Serena thought about that question, about forgiveness and betrayal and the complicated love between sisters. "Ask me again when this is over," she said. "Right now, I just need to know if you're with me or against me." "I'm with you," Liana said quickly. "I've always been with you, even when it didn't look like it." "Then prove it. Go back to your life with Adrian, keep Victor satisfied, and wait for my instructions." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of conspiracy settling over them like a shroud. Finally, Liana asked, "What are you going to do?" Serena thought about her secret, about the child Victor Marino didn't know existed, about the power that knowledge gave her. "I'm going to do what I do best," she said. "I'm going to play the long game. And when this is over, Victor Marino is going to wish he'd never heard the name Whitmore." She stood, gathering her coat and purse, preparing to walk back into the winter afternoon with a purpose she hadn't felt in years. "Serena?" Liana called as she turned to leave. "What?" "I really am sorry for everything." Serena looked at her sister, broken and scared, and so much weaker than she'd always seemed. Once upon a time, she would have comforted her, would have promised everything would be okay. But that Serena was gone. The woman who stood here now had been forged in betrayal and tempered in fury. "Save your apologies," she said quietly. "You're going to need them when this is finished." Then she walked away, leaving Liana alone with the ancient temple and the weight of her choices, while Serena went to wage a war she was only beginning to understand. The car service dropped Serena at the penthouse 20 minutes later, but she didn't go inside. Instead, she stood on the sidewalk in the fading afternoon light, watching yellow cabs navigate the chaos of Central Park West, while her mind worked through the chess game she'd just entered. Victor Marino wanted Adrian vulnerable, wanted him distracted, weakened, his judgment compromised. The affair with Liana was just the opening move. The divorce would be the second. And Serena's death, made to look accidental, convenient, would be the checkmate that left Adrian so devastated, so consumed by grief and guilt, that he'd never see the coup coming until it was too late. It was elegant, really. Ruthless and efficient, and exactly the kind of long-term strategy that had made Victor one of Adrian's most valued advisors. But Victor had made one critical miscalculation. He'd assumed Serena was powerless, a trophy wife with no real value beyond her appearance and her ability to produce heirs, a woman who could be eliminated without consequence. He had no idea what she was carrying, no idea that the heir he thought would never exist was already growing, already real, already changing every equation in this game. Serena pulled out her phone and dialed a number she hadn't called in 5 years. Marcus Reynolds answered on the third ring. "Serena Whitmore, I'll be damned. I was starting to think you'd fallen off the face of the earth." "I need your help, Marcus, and I need your discretion." A pause. In the background, she could hear what sounded like a basketball game on television. "This about your husband? What makes you say that?" "Because the only time people in your world call lawyers on the day after Christmas is when things have gone spectacularly wrong. So what is it? Divorce? Asset protection? Criminal defense?" "All of the above, potentially." Marcus whistled low. "That bad, huh? All right, can you come to my office tomorrow, say 10 a.m.? "I'll be there." "And Serena, whatever this is, whatever you're dealing with, watch your back. Adrian Valente's world doesn't play by the rules you and I learned in law school." "I know," she said quietly. "That's why I'm calling you." She ended the call and finally went inside, riding the elevator to the penthouse in silence. The apartment felt even emptier than it had that morning. Adrian had taken more of his things. His cologne was gone from the bathroom. His reading glasses no longer on the nightstand. The leather jacket he wore on weekends missing from the closet. He was erasing himself from her life piece by piece. Soon there would be nothing left but ghost memories and the cold comfort of a generous divorce settlement. Except that wasn't going to happen. Not if Serena had anything to say about it. She spent the evening making notes, building timelines, trying to construct a picture of Victor's operation from the fragments Liana had given her. The affair had started in June. 6 months of Liana feeding information to Victor. 6 months of Victor watching Adrian, learning his patterns, identifying vulnerabilities. The family council meeting was in February, 6 weeks away. Whatever Victor was planning would come to a head then, when all the major players in the Valente organization gathered to discuss territory, earnings, and strategy. If Victor was going to make a move against Adrian, that's when he'd do it. In front of witnesses. In front of the people whose support he'd need to legitimize a transition of power. Serena opened her laptop and started researching. Victor Marino had been with the Valente family for 15 years. He'd come up through the ranks quickly, proving himself capable and loyal. He'd saved Adrian's life twice, according to the stories she'd overheard at family dinners. He was respected, feared, and trusted, which made him the perfect person to orchestrate a betrayal. No one would see it coming until it was too late. Her phone buzzed with a text from Adrian. "Papers will be ready Thursday. Can we meet to discuss?" She stared at the message for a long moment before typing back. "Fine. Your lawyer's office. 2 p.m. I'm bringing representation." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "That's not necessary. This doesn't have to be adversarial." Serena almost laughed. "Everything about this is adversarial. See you Thursday." She silenced her phone and returned to her research, pulling up everything she could find about Victor Marino. His businesses, a restaurant supply company that was obviously a front, a waste management operation, a construction firm. His properties, a brownstone in Brooklyn, a house in the Hamptons, an apartment in Miami. His associates, his patterns, his life. There had to be something, some weakness she could exploit, some leverage she could use. At midnight, exhausted and no closer to a plan, Serena finally closed her laptop and went to bed. But sleep remained elusive. She lay in the darkness, one hand on her stomach, feeling nothing yet but knowing life was there, growing, depending on her to make the right choices. "I won't let them hurt you," she whispered into the darkness. "I promise." It was becoming her mantra, her prayer to a future she couldn't quite see but was determined to reach. Morning came too quickly. Serena forced herself through her usual routine: shower, coffee, the careful application of makeup that transformed her from exhausted to elegant. She dressed in a navy Tom Ford suit with a white silk shell underneath, pearls at her throat, her Cartier watch on her wrist, the armor of a woman who belonged in boardrooms and courtrooms and the halls of power. Marcus Reynolds' office was in Midtown, a modest suite in a building that had seen better decades. It was as far from Adrian's world of sleek penthouse offices and corner suites as possible, which was exactly why Serena had chosen him. Marcus himself looked exactly as she remembered. 6 feet tall, African-American, with close-cropped hair going gray at the temples and wire-rimmed glasses that gave him a professorial air. He'd been one of the best trial attorneys in the city before he'd gotten fed up with corporate law and started taking cases that actually interested him. "Serena." He stood when his assistant showed her in, coming around his desk to shake her hand. "You look good. Married life must agree with you." "Married life is ending," she said bluntly. "That's why I'm here." Marcus's expression shifted to professional concern. He gestured to the chairs in front of his desk. "Tell me everything." So she did. Not everything. She didn't mention the pregnancy, didn't mention Victor's plot, didn't mention Liana's role as an unwilling conspirator. But she told him about the affair, about Adrian's demand for divorce, about the prenuptial agreement that would leave her comfortable but nowhere near the level she'd grown accustomed to. Marcus listened without interrupting, taking notes on a legal pad in his precise handwriting. When she finished, he sat back in his chair and studied her over his glasses. "You want to fight this?" he said. It wasn't a question. "I want to understand my options." "Your options are limited. The prenup is solid. I assume Adrian's lawyers made sure of that. You could contest it, argue duress or lack of disclosure, but that's a long shot. More likely, you're looking at exactly what the prenup stipulates. Unless there are children." Marcus's eyebrows rose. "Are there?" "Not yet, but the prenup has different terms if children are involved." "Significantly different, I'm guessing." "Very." Marcus tapped his pen against his notepad. "So what are you really asking me, Serena? Because this feels like more than just a prenuptial review." She met his eyes. "If I were pregnant, hypothetically, and Adrian filed for divorce before he knew, would that change the terms?" "Depends on when he files versus when the child is born. If he files while you're pregnant, you could argue the prenup's children clause should apply. If he files before he knows you're pregnant, it gets murkier." A good lawyer could argue either way. And if I wanted to delay the divorce proceedings, stretch them out, what would be my best strategy? Marcus leaned forward. Serena, are you pregnant? Hypothetically. Hypothetically, you'd want to confirm the pregnancy with medical documentation. Then you'd want to inform Adrian before he files, because knowledge is power in family law. The moment he knows there's a child, the entire framework of the divorce changes. The prenup's children clause kicks in, you have leverage for custody and support negotiations, and most importantly, you have a reason for him to reconsider the divorce entirely. And if I didn't want him to know, if I wanted to keep it secret until I was further along? Marcus removed his glasses and cleaned them with his tie, a gesture she recognized as his tell when he was thinking hard. That's a dangerous game. If he finds out you deliberately withheld information about a pregnancy during divorce proceedings, it could blow back on you spectacularly. Courts don't look kindly on deception, even with good cause. What if the cause is safety? What if I have reason to believe that people close to Adrian might hurt me or the baby if they knew? Marcus put his glasses back on, his expression grave. Then we're not talking about divorce strategy anymore. We're talking about protective measures, restraining orders, police involvement, witness protection potentially. That's not an option. Why not? Because the people she was protecting herself from were the same people who had cops on their payroll, judges in their pocket, and the kind of reach that made traditional legal protections meaningless. But she couldn't say that to Marcus. Because it would put other people at risk, she said instead. People I care about. Marcus studied her for a long moment. You're in over your head, aren't you? Probably, but I'm also the only person who can fix this. The smart move is to take the prenup settlement and walk away. $5 million is more than enough to start over, to build a new life somewhere else. And if walking away isn't an option, then you need to be very, very careful, because men like Adrian Valente, men with power and resources and the kind of connections I'm guessing he has, they don't lose gracefully. They especially don't lose to their wives. Serena stood, smoothing her skirt. Thank you, Marcus. This has been helpful. I haven't agreed to take your case yet, but you will, because you owe me a favor and because you're curious. And because somewhere under that cynical exterior, you still believe in helping people who need it. Marcus shook his head, but he was smiling slightly. You always were too smart for your own good. All right, I'll represent you. But Serena, be honest with me. What are we really dealing with here? I'll tell you when I know, she promised. Right now, I'm still figuring it out myself. She left his office with more questions than answers, but feeling stronger than she had in days. She had a lawyer. She had Liana's cooperation, however reluctant. And she had a secret that could change everything. Now she just needed to figure out how to use it. The meeting with Adrian's lawyers on Thursday was exactly as unpleasant as Serena expected. Christopher Hayden's office occupied the entire top floor of a glass tower in the financial district, all chrome and marble and floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the harbor. The kind of place designed to intimidate. Serena walked in with Marcus at her side and her head held high, refusing to be diminished by the surroundings or the three lawyers arrayed on the other side of the conference table. Adrian wasn't there. Serena wasn't sure whether to be relieved or insulted. Mrs. Valente. Christopher Hayden stood to greet her, all silver hair and practiced charm. Thank you for coming. I believe you know my associates, Jennifer Chen and David Walsh. Serena nodded acknowledgement, but didn't bother with pleasantries. Let's get to it. What are you proposing? They spent 90 minutes reviewing the divorce agreement. It was, as Marcus had predicted, exactly what the prenup stipulated. $5 million. A two-bedroom apartment anywhere in Manhattan. Her car, her jewelry, her personal accounts. Clean, efficient, and designed to make her disappear quietly from Adrian's life. My client is being extremely generous, Christopher said when they'd finished. Most men in his position would fight for less. Most men in his position aren't trying to avoid looking like they abandoned their wife for her younger sister, Serena replied coolly. This isn't generosity, it's damage control. Christopher's smile tightened. Nevertheless, these are our terms. Sign the agreement, and we can have this finalized by March. April, at the latest. No. All three lawyers looked at her in surprise. No? Christopher repeated. I'm not signing anything today. My attorney needs time to review the documents, and I need time to consider my options. Mrs. Valente, Dragging this out serves no purpose. It serves my purpose, Serena interrupted, which is all I care about. You'll hear from us when we're ready to discuss this further. She stood, and Marcus followed her lead. They were halfway to the door when Jennifer Chen spoke up. Mrs. Valente, may I ask you something, off the record? Serena turned back. Jennifer was younger than the other lawyers, maybe 35, with intelligent eyes behind designer frames. What? Why are you fighting this? Your husband has made his choice. The settlement is fair. Holding on just makes everything more painful for everyone involved. You think I'm being emotional, Serena said. Irrational. A scorned woman who can't accept reality. I think you're hurt. Understandably so. But I also think you're smart enough to know when to cut your losses. Serena walked back to the conference table, placing her hands on the polished surface and leaning forward to meet Jennifer's eyes. Let me tell you something about losses, she said quietly. I've had 3 miscarriages in the past 3 years. 3 times I've carried a child inside me and felt it die. 3 times I've had to go to the hospital and have doctors remove what was left. Do you know what that feels like? To have your body fail you over and over? To watch your husband's hope turn to disappointment, turn to barely disguised resentment? Jennifer's expression softened, but Serena wasn't finished. So, no, I'm not ready to cut my losses. I'm not ready to smile and nod and sign papers that say 10 years of my life were worth $5 million and a pat on the head. I'm not ready to make this easy for a man who couldn't even bother to show up today to face me himself. Mrs. Valente, we'll be in touch, Serena said, straightening, through proper channels, with appropriate notice, following every procedure to the letter, because unlike some people, I still believe in doing things the right way. She left before any of them could respond, Marcus hurrying to keep up with her as she strode to the elevators. That was quite a performance, he said when the elevator doors closed. That wasn't a performance, that was the truth. The truth strategically deployed to make them think you're an emotional wreck who'll eventually cave. Serena smiled thinly. I learned from the best. Adrian always said the key to negotiation is making your opponent underestimate you. So what's the real plan? I need to delay these proceedings as long as possible. String them along, make them think I'm being difficult because I'm hurt. And meanwhile, I gather evidence. I figure out exactly what Victor Marino is planning, and I decide how to use what I know to protect myself and my baby. The elevator reached the lobby. Marcus caught her arm before she could step out. Serena, listen to me. Whatever you're planning, whatever game you think you're playing, these are dangerous people. If you're really pregnant, if there really is a threat, you need to prioritize safety over revenge. Who said anything about revenge? I know that look. I've seen it on clients before. It's the look of someone who's decided they're going to win at any cost. Not at any cost, Serena corrected. Just at whatever cost is necessary. She pulled free from his grip and walked out into the winter afternoon, leaving Marcus standing in the lobby with a worried expression she chose not to acknowledge. Because he was right. She was playing a dangerous game, but she was also running out of options. Victor Marino wanted her dead. Adrian wanted her gone. And somewhere in the tangled web of their schemes, there had to be a way to survive. Her phone rang as she climbed into a cab. Liana. What? Serena answered. We need to meet. Victor's pushing. He wants confirmation about your fertility status. Today. Tell him I'm devastated. Tell him I confessed everything to you. Tell him whatever he needs to hear. It's not that simple. He wants proof. Medical records. Something official. Serena closed her eyes, thinking fast. Can you stall him? Say I'm not ready to talk yet? Say I'm too emotional? I can try, but Serena, he's getting suspicious. He keeps asking questions about you, about why you're not fighting the divorce harder, about what you might be planning. What did you tell him? That you're in shock, that you're falling apart. But I don't think he believes me. The cab pulled into traffic, heading uptown toward the penthouse. Serena watched the city slide past, people going about their lives, oblivious to the war being waged in penthouses and lawyers' offices and quiet cafes. Where are you now? She asked Liana. At the Gramercy. Adrian's in the shower. Then listen carefully. You're going to go to him when he gets out. You're going to tell him that you talked to me, that I'm devastated about the fertility issues, that I admitted to you that the doctors have told me there's no hope. But Just do it, Liana. Plant the seed. Make sure Adrian tells Victor. Make Victor think he's won that round. And then wait for my next instruction. What are you going to do? Serena thought about the life growing inside her, about the secret that was both her greatest vulnerability and her most powerful weapon, about the meeting she needed to arrange and the risk she was about to take. I'm going to make sure Victor Marino never sees me coming, she said. She ended the call and leaned forward to give the cab driver a new address. Not the penthouse, not Marcus's office, but a brownstone in Greenwich Village that housed one of the most discreet private investigation firms in New York. If she was going to go to war, she needed intelligence. She needed to know everything about Victor Marino, his operations, his allies, his plans. She needed evidence that could bring him down, and she needed it before he figured out what she was carrying and decided to accelerate his timeline for her death. The investigator's name was Rachel Kim, and she came highly recommended by a former colleague who'd used her services in a messy divorce case 3 years ago. Her office was small and cluttered, file boxes stacked against every wall, 3 computer monitors on a desk covered in coffee cups and legal pads. Rachel herself was in her 40s, Korean-American, with sharp eyes and an air of someone who'd seen too much to be shocked by anything. Serena Valente, she said, gesturing to a chair that Serena had to clear of folders before she could sit. I know who you are. Know who your husband is too. So before we go any further, I need to know, is this a divorce investigation? Because I don't touch organized crime. Not worth the headache or the risk. It's complicated, Serena said. It always is. But I need a straight answer. Am I investigating Adrian Valente? No, you're investigating Victor Marino. Rachel's expression shifted. Adrian's second, the underboss. You know him? Know of him, which in my line of work is usually enough. What do you want to know about him? Everything. His businesses, his properties, his associates. Who he's been meeting with, where his money comes from and where it goes, his schedule, his habits, his weaknesses. That's a tall order. Victor Marino is careful. He doesn't leave trails. Everyone leaves trails, Serena said. You just have to know where to look. Rachel leaned back in her chair, studying Serena with those sharp eyes. This is personal for you. Very. And dangerous. Extremely. Which means my fees just doubled. Hazard pay. Fine. Whatever it costs. I need this information, and I need it within 2 weeks. 2 weeks? Rachel laughed. You're asking for a comprehensive investigation of a high-ranking member of the Valente organization in 2 weeks? That's insane. I'll pay triple your usual rate, plus a bonus when you deliver. That got Rachel's attention. She pulled a legal pad across her desk and picked up a pen. What's your real end game here, Mrs. Valente? Because this feels like more than just divorce discovery. My end game is survival, Serena said simply. Victor Marino is planning something that puts me and people I care about at risk. I need to know what it is before it's too late to stop it. And if I find evidence of criminal activity, evidence that could get people killed, then I'll decide what to do with it. But I need to know the truth first. Rachel studied her for another long moment, then nodded slowly. All right, I'll take the case. But Mrs. Valente, be prepared for what I might find. Sometimes the truth is worse than the lie. I know, Serena said. I'm counting on it. She left the brownstone as evening fell over the city, streetlights flickering to life, and the temperature dropping toward freezing. She should go home, should rest, should take care of herself and the baby growing inside her. But instead she found herself walking. Block after block, hands shoved in her coat pockets, breath misting in the cold air, trying to process everything that had happened in the past few days. The betrayal on Christmas Eve, Liana's confession, Victor's plot, the divorce papers waiting for her signature. Her phone buzzed, a text from Adrian. Christopher said you walked out of the meeting. We need to talk. This doesn't have to be a fight. Serena stared at the message, anger rising hot and fast in her chest. He thought this didn't have to be a fight, thought she'd just roll over and accept his generous offer and fade quietly from his life. He had no idea who he was dealing with anymore. She typed back, "You're right. It doesn't have to be a fight. It can be a war. Your choice." 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again, then nothing. Serena smiled grimly and kept walking, her path taking her past the restaurants where she and Adrian used to have dinner, the park where he'd proposed, the gallery where they'd bought their first piece of art together, all the landmarks of a life that was crumbling around her. But she wasn't crumbling with it. She was building something new, something stronger, something that would protect her child and punish the people who'd tried to destroy her. She just had to survive long enough to see it through. By the time Serena made it back to the penthouse, it was nearly 9. She was exhausted, her feet aching from walking in heels, her head pounding from stress and the emotional toll of the past few days. But when she opened the door, she found Adrian sitting in the living room in the dark, a glass of scotch in his hand. "We need to talk," he said. "I thought you were staying at the Gramercy." "I was. I am. But after that text you sent, I figured we should clear the air." Serena dropped her purse and coat on the entry table. "There's nothing to clear. You want a divorce. I'm making you work for it. That's all there is to say." "Serena, please, can we just—" He stood, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "Can we just be honest with each other for 5 minutes? No lawyers, no games, no strategy. Just us." "There is no us anymore, Adrian. You made that choice when you slept with my sister. I know I hurt you, but this doesn't have to destroy us both." "Us both?" Serena laughed, the sound bitter even to her own ears. "You're not being destroyed. You're getting exactly what you want. A new life with Liana, freedom from a wife who disappointed you, the ability to start over." "And what about you? What do you want?" The question hung between them, loaded with implications and possibilities. What did she want? Revenge? Justice? Her marriage back? Her old life restored? Or something else entirely? Something that terrified and exhilarated her in equal measure. "I want you to leave," she said finally. "I want you to go back to the Gramercy and your new life and leave me alone to figure out mine." "I can't do that. Not when you're sending threatening texts and playing games with my lawyers." "What's your plan, Serena? What are you trying to accomplish?" She met his eyes across the dim room. "I'm trying to make sure that when this is over, when you've moved on and forgotten I exist, I still have something left. Some dignity, some control, some sense that I didn't just let you throw me away like I was nothing." Something flickered in Adrian's expression. Regret, maybe, or guilt. But it was gone too quickly to name. "You were never nothing," he said quietly. "You were everything. For a long time you were everything. But not anymore. No, not anymore." The honesty of it stole her breath. She'd known it, felt it. But hearing him say it out loud made it real in a way nothing else had. "Then go," she whispered. "Just go and let me grieve in peace." Adrian set down his glass and moved toward the door, but he paused when he reached her, standing close enough that she could smell the scotch on his breath and the cologne that used to make her feel safe. "For what it's worth," he said, "I never meant to hurt you this badly. I never meant for any of this to happen. But it did happen, and now we both have to live with it." He reached out like he might touch her face, then thought better of it. His hand dropped to his side. "Goodbye, Serena." "Goodbye, Adrian." She watched him leave, heard the door close with a soft click, and then she was alone in the penthouse that had once been their home and was now just an empty shell filled with ghosts. Serena sank onto the couch, both hands pressed against her stomach, and let herself cry for the first time since Christmas Eve. Not for Adrian, not for her marriage, but for the girl she'd been 10 years ago who'd believed in fairy tales and happy endings. For the woman she'd tried to be who was never quite enough. For all the dreams that had died and all the futures that would never exist. But even as she cried, even as grief threatened to drown her, that core of steel remained. That fierce determination to protect what was hers. Because Victor Marino might be planning her death, and Adrian might be planning her exit, but Serena Valente was planning something far more dangerous. She was planning to survive. And in a world where survival meant war, she was ready to become whatever she needed to be to win. The crying stopped eventually, leaving Serena hollow, but strangely clear-headed. She wiped her face, poured herself a glass of water, and sat at the dining table with her laptop. If she was going to wage war, she needed to understand the battlefield. She pulled up everything she could find about the Valente family structure. Adrian sat at the top, but beneath him was a complex hierarchy of captains, soldiers, and associates. Victor Marino was second in command, But he wasn't the only one with ambition. There were others, men who'd been with the family longer, men who resented Victor's rapid rise, men who might be persuaded to choose sides if the right leverage was applied. Her phone buzzed around midnight. Liana. I did what you said. Told Adrian about your fertility issues. He seemed sad about it. Asked if you were okay. I'm sure his concern is touching, Serena said dryly. What did Victor say when Adrian told him? I don't know. I wasn't there for that conversation. But Adrian's been different since. Quieter. Like maybe he's having second thoughts. Second thoughts about the divorce or second thoughts about trusting Victor? I can't tell. Maybe both. Liana paused. Serena, I'm scared. Victor's been asking me strange questions about you, about whether you might do something drastic, about whether you have any connections outside of Adrian's world. Serena's instincts sharpened. What kind of connections? Legal, political. People who might help you if things got ugly. I told him no, that you've been completely isolated since the marriage. But I don't think he believed me. Good. Let him wonder. Let him waste energy worrying about threats that may or may not exist. This isn't a game, Serena. Victor Marino kills people. That's what he does. And if he thinks you're a threat, then he'll make a mistake, Serena interrupted. And when he does, I'll be ready. She ended the call before Liana could protest further. Fear was useful, but only in measured doses. Too much, and people became paralyzed. Too little, and they became reckless. Serena walked to the window, looking out at the city lights stretching toward the horizon. Somewhere out there, Victor Marino was planning her death. Somewhere out there, Adrian was building a new life without her. And somewhere out there, Rachel Kim was digging through Victor's secrets, looking for the weakness that would bring him down. The next week passed in a strange limbo. Serena went to the doctor, not Dr. Chen, but a specialist in Brooklyn that Rachel had recommended, someone with no connections to Adrian's world. The pregnancy was progressing normally. 8 weeks now, heartbeat strong, due date in late July. You're high risk because of your age and history, doctor, Sarah Okonkwo told her, reviewing the ultrasound images. But so far everything looks good. We'll want to monitor you closely. Weekly appointments until 12 weeks, then we'll reassess. No one can know about this, Serena said. Not yet. Is there any way to keep the records completely private? Dr. Okonkwo studied her over the rim of her glasses. I can keep them out of the standard system. But, Mrs. Valente, if there's a safety issue, there is, but I'm handling it. Are you? Because in my experience, women who need this level of secrecy are usually in danger, and pregnant women in danger need help, not privacy. I have help. I have a lawyer. I have resources, and I have a plan. I just need time to execute it. Dr. Okonkwo didn't look convinced, but she nodded. All right, but if anything changes, if you feel threatened in any way, you call me immediately. I have contacts, people who can help. Serena left the clinic with prenatal vitamins and a fierce determination to make it to 12 weeks, to 20 weeks, to viability, to birth, to a future where her child was safe and Victor Marino was destroyed. Rachel called 3 days later. I've got something, she said without preamble. Can you come to the office? Serena was there within the hour, her heart pounding as Rachel spread documents across her cluttered desk. Victor Marino is even more interesting than I thought, Rachel began. On the surface, everything looks legitimate. The restaurant supply company has real clients. The waste management operation has city contracts. The construction firm is building actual buildings. But underneath? Underneath, it's all a shell game. Money flows in from one source, gets laundered through the businesses, and flows out to offshore accounts. Standard organized crime playbook. But here's where it gets interesting. Rachel pulled up a spreadsheet on one of her monitors. 3 months ago, Victor started moving money. A lot of money. Into accounts that aren't connected to the Valente family structure. His own accounts. Exactly. He's been skimming. Not huge amounts, nothing that would trigger immediate red flags, but consistent, systematic, building himself a nest egg. Serena leaned forward, studying the numbers. How much total? Close to 8 million, spread across 6 different offshore accounts, all hidden behind shell corporations. $8 million. enough to fund a takeover, enough to buy loyalty, enough to disappear if things went wrong. Can you trace where the money's going after it hits the offshore accounts? Serena asked. Some of it, not all. But what I can trace is interesting. He's been making payments to people, regular payments, like a payroll. Who? Rachel pulled up another document. That's the tricky part. Most of the recipients are hidden behind corporate veils, but I managed to identify 3 of them. Carlo Rossetti, he's a captain in the Valente family. James Jimmy the Knife Delgado, he's muscle, but respected muscle. And Vincent Carbone, he's the family's attorney. Serena sat back, processing. Victor wasn't just planning a coup, he was buying one. Building his own power base inside the Valente organization, paying key players to switch their loyalty when the time came. There's more, Rachel said. I found communication records, encrypted messages between Victor and someone using the handle Queenside. They've been talking for months, planning something big for February. The family council meeting. That would be my guess. The messages reference the old man, the transfer, and cleaning house. Pretty clear what they're planning. Who's Queenside? I don't know yet. Whoever it is, they're careful, using multiple layers of encryption, bouncing signals through servers in 3 different countries. But I'm working on it. Serena's mind raced. This was good. This was evidence. This was leverage. Can you document all of this? Create a comprehensive report with sources and documentation? Already doing it. Should have it ready in a week. Make it 3 days, and Rachel, this can't get out. Not yet. Not until I'm ready to use it. Rachel's expression was grim. You're planning to go to Adrian with this, to warn him about Victor. Eventually, when the timing is right. And what if the timing is never right? What if Adrian's in on it? What if he and Victor are playing you both? The thought had occurred to Serena, but her instincts, honed by 10 years of reading Adrian's moods and motivations, said no. Adrian might be a bastard, might be a cheater, might be cold and ruthless, but he loved power too much to give it up willingly. If Victor was planning a coup, Adrian was the target, not a co-conspirator. He's not in on it, Serena said, but I need proof before I can bring this to him, proof he can't ignore or explain away. You're putting a lot of faith in a man who's divorcing you. I'm not putting faith in him. I'm putting faith in his self-interest, and his self-interest is staying in power. Rachel shook her head. You're braver than I thought. Or crazier. Hard to tell which. Both, probably, Serena admitted, but I don't have the luxury of being cautious anymore. She left Rachel's office with hope and fear warring in her chest. The evidence was building. The picture was becoming clear, but she still needed more. Needed to understand the endgame. Needed to know exactly when and how Victor planned to move. And she needed to figure out how to use her pregnancy, the one card Victor didn't know she held, to maximum advantage. Her phone rang as she walked. An unknown number. She answered cautiously. Hello? Mrs. Valente, we haven't been properly introduced. My name is Victor Marino. Serena's blood turned to ice. She stopped walking, her hand tightening on the phone. What do you want? Just to talk, woman to woman, so to speak. Well, man to woman, you know what I mean. His voice was smooth, almost pleasant, which made it more terrifying. I understand you're having some difficulty accepting your marriage is over. I don't see how that's any of your business. Oh, but it is my business. You see, Adrian is like a brother to me. His happiness matters. His future matters. And right now, you're standing in the way of both. Is that a threat? It's an observation. Adrian wants to move on, to build a new life. But he can't do that while you're dragging out divorce proceedings and making everything complicated. Serena forced herself to breathe normally, to sound calm, unafraid. If Adrian wants to talk to me, he knows where to find me. Adrian is too soft-hearted, too concerned with your feelings. That's always been his weakness. He cares too much about the wrong people. But I don't have that problem. What are you saying, Mr. Marino? I'm saying that sometimes people need help accepting reality. Help understanding when it's time to let go. Help seeing that fighting the inevitable only causes pain. The subtext was clear, crystal clear. This was a warning. Step aside or face consequences. I appreciate your concern, Serena said, keeping her voice steady through sheer force of will. But I'm perfectly capable of managing my own life. Are you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're making some very poor choices. Hiring private investigators, meeting with lawyers who have, shall we say, complicated relationships with our world, asking questions that might be better left unasked. He knew. Victor knew she'd hired Rachel, knew she was digging, which meant he was watching her, following her, or had people watching her. I'm a lawyer, Serena said. Asking questions is what I do. And I'm a businessman. Protecting my interests is what I do. So let me be very clear, Mrs. Valente. Sign the divorce papers, take the settlement, move on with your life. Because the alternative would be very unfortunate. Are you threatening me? I'm advising you. There's a difference. Threats are crude. Advice is a gift. And my gift to you is this. Some battles aren't worth fighting. Some wars can't be won. And some women need to understand their place before they get hurt. Rage flooded through Serena, hot and pure and clarifying. And what place is that exactly? Anywhere but here. Anywhere but in Adrian's life. Anywhere but in the way of progress. Progress? Serena repeated. Is that what you call sleeping with your boss's wife's sister? Progress? A pause. When Victor spoke again, his voice had lost its pleasant veneer. Be very careful, Mrs. Valente. You're playing a game you don't understand with stakes you can't afford. Try me. I have. And I found you wanting. You're a liability, a complication, and complications get resolved, one way or another. The line went dead. Serena stood on the sidewalk, trembling with adrenaline and fear and fury. Victor had just confirmed everything Liana had told her. He wanted her gone. Out of Adrian's life, out of the picture entirely, and he'd just made it personal. She called Marcus immediately. Victor Marino just threatened me. I need you to document everything, every call, every text, every interaction from this point forward. If something happens to me... Whoa, slow down. What do you mean if something happens to you? Serena told him about the call, about Victor's thinly veiled threats, about the realization that she was running out of time. We need to go to the police, Marcus said when she finished. And tell them what? That a prominent businessman gave me some friendly advice about my divorce? There's nothing actionable there, nothing that would hold up. Then we get a restraining order. Against who? Victor didn't explicitly threaten me. He just implied, suggested, and a restraining order would tip my hand. Would let him know I'm scared. Would give him a reason to accelerate whatever he's planning. So what do you want to do? I want you to prepare a fail-safe, a document that contains everything I know about Victor, everything Rachel's found, everything Liana's told me. And if anything happens to me, if I disappear, if I have an accident, if I die under suspicious circumstances, that document goes to the FBI, the NYPD, the Manhattan DA, and every major newspaper in the city. Serena, I'm serious, Marcus. I need insurance. I need Victor to know that killing me would be the worst mistake he could make. And how exactly do you plan to let him know about this failsafe without revealing what you know? That was the question, wasn't it? How to leverage information without exposing your hand. How to create deterrence without provoking preemptive action. I'm working on it, Serena said. Just get the document ready. I'll figure out the rest. She spent the next 2 days in a state of heightened alertness, jumping at shadows, checking over her shoulder, varying her routes and schedules. Victor's threat had been a tactical error. Instead of intimidating her into submission, it had sharpened her resolve. But it had also made her realize how vulnerable she was. How easy it would be for Victor to arrange an accident. A mugging gone wrong, a car crash, a fall down the penthouse stairs. She needed to move faster, needed to force the confrontation on her terms, not wait for Victor to make his move. Rachel called on Friday with the completed report. Serena went to pick it up in person, taking a circuitous route through the city, changing cabs twice, making sure she wasn't followed. The report was devastating. 80 pages of financial records, communication logs, and documented connections. Victor's skimming, his offshore accounts, his payments to key players in the organization, his encrypted communications with the mysterious Queenside. I still can't identify Queenside, Rachel admitted, but I did find one interesting detail. Whoever it is, they're in New York. The signal triangulation puts them somewhere in Manhattan, and they're careful, but not quite careful enough. There's a pattern to when they communicate, always during business hours, always on weekdays. My guess? Someone with a day job. Someone who has to work around a schedule. Someone inside the organization, Serena said. That would be my bet, which means Victor's conspiracy goes deeper than we thought. He's not just buying loyalty. He's got a partner, someone who's feeding him information from inside Adrian's inner circle. Serena took the report and paid Rachel the substantial sum they'd agreed upon, plus a bonus. If anyone asks, anyone at all, you've never heard of me. This investigation never happened. Understood? Client confidentiality. It's sacred. But Serena, watch your back. Whatever you're planning, do it soon, because the longer this drags out, the more danger you're in. I know I'm meeting with Liana tomorrow, getting the last piece of the puzzle. Then I'm moving. Moving how? I'm going to give Victor exactly what he wants, and then I'm going to destroy him with it. The meeting with Liana was set for Saturday afternoon at a small bistro in the West Village, far from anywhere Adrian or Victor might casually appear. Serena arrived early, choosing a table in the back corner where she could see both entrances. Liana showed up 10 minutes late, looking worse than she had at the Met. Her clothes were expensive but rumpled. Her makeup couldn't quite hide the exhaustion in her eyes. You look terrible, Serena said bluntly. I feel terrible. I can't sleep, can barely eat. Every time Adrian touches me, I want to scream. Every time Victor calls, I think it's going to be the call where he tells me to kill you, or he'll kill me instead. He won't tell you that. Too messy, too many connections back to him. If he moves against me, it'll be clean, professional, something that can't be traced. That's not reassuring, Serena. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be realistic. Serena slid a menu across the table. Order something. You need to eat. They ordered salads neither of them would finish, and then Serena got to business. I need you to tell me everything you know about the family council meeting in February. Who's going to be there? What the agenda is? What Victor's planning? Liana took a shaky sip of water. It's the quarterly meeting, all the captains, all the key players. They discuss territories, earnings, disputes. It's usually pretty routine. But this one won't be. No, Victor's been laying groundwork for weeks, spreading rumors about Adrian, about how he's distracted, how the divorce is making him look weak, how he's letting personal issues interfere with business. And people are listening. Some are. The old guard doesn't like it. They remember when Adrian took over from his father, how strong he was. But the younger guys, the ones who came up under Victor's leadership, they're starting to question. Starting to wonder if maybe Victor would be better. What's Victor's play? How's he planning to actually take power? Liana looked around nervously, even though the bistro was nearly empty. He's going to call for a vote of no confidence, in front of everyone. He's going to present evidence that Adrian's unfit to lead, that his judgment is compromised, that he's making decisions based on emotion instead of strategy. What evidence? The divorce, the affair with me, the way he's alienated some of the other families by being too aggressive in his expansion, the way he handled the situation with the Martinelli crew last year. Some people think he was too soft, that he should have retaliated instead of negotiating. Serena absorbed this. A vote of no confidence, and if it passes? Then leadership transfers to Victor, immediately. And anyone who opposes the transition gets removed from their positions, exiled from the organization. Or worse. And Adrian? What happens to him? Victor says Adrian will be allowed to retire, to step away peacefully, to live out his life in comfort somewhere far from New York. Liana's voice dropped to barely a whisper. But I don't believe him. I think once Victor has power, Adrian becomes a liability, someone who could always challenge him, always come back. I think Victor will have him killed and make it look like an accident or a hit from a rival family. And you? What happens to you when Victor doesn't need you anymore? I don't know. That's what terrifies me. I'm a loose end. I know too much. And Victor doesn't strike me as the kind of man who leaves loose ends. Serena reached across the table and gripped Liana's hand. Not gently, hard enough to make her sister meet her eyes. Listen to me very carefully. You're going to do exactly what I tell you. No questions, no deviation. Because if you want to survive this, if you want both of us to survive this, you need to trust me completely. What are you going to do? I'm going to give a performance, the performance of my life, and you're going to help me. Over the next hour, Serena laid out her plan. It was risky, potentially disastrous, but it was also the only way she could see to turn Victor's conspiracy against him. "You're insane," Liana breathed when Serena finished explaining. "This could get us both killed. So could doing nothing. At least this way, we're in control. At least this way, we choose the battlefield. But what if it doesn't work? What if Victor sees through it? Then we improvise, we adapt, we survive." Serena released Liana's hand. "But we do this together, as sisters, the way we should have been doing things all along." Liana's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry. For everything. For Adrian. For the affair. For getting involved with Victor in the first place. I'm so sorry." "Save your apologies. We'll deal with our relationship after we've dealt with Victor. Right now, I need you focused. I need you strong. Can you do that?" "I can try." "Trying isn't good enough. I need a yes or a no." Liana wiped her eyes, and for the first time since Christmas Eve, Serena saw something like determination in her sister's face. "Yes, I'm in. Tell me what to do." "First, you're going to go back to Adrian and tell him I called you. Tell him I'm falling apart. Tell him I've been making wild accusations about Victor, about conspiracy theories, about how I think people are out to get me. Make me sound paranoid, unstable, like the stress of the divorce has broken me." "Why?" "Because when I make my move, I need everyone to think I'm acting out of desperation instead of strategy. I need Victor to underestimate me, and I need Adrian to doubt anything I might tell him." "What else?" "Second, you're going to arrange a meeting between me and Victor, private. Just the three of us, you, me, and him. Tell him I want to negotiate. Tell him I'm ready to sign the divorce papers if he can guarantee my safety. Make it seem like I'm capitulating. He'll never believe it. He'll want to believe it, because it fits his narrative, the weak woman finally accepting reality, finally doing what she's told. And his ego won't let him pass up the chance to gloat." Liana nodded slowly. "When?" "Next week, before the family council meeting. I need this to happen on my timeline, not his." "And what happens at this meeting? What's your actual plan?" Serena smiled, and it was not a kind expression. "I'm going to give Victor exactly what he deserves. But first, I need one more thing from you." "What?" "I need you to find out who Queenside is, who Victor's partner in this conspiracy is, because that's the piece I'm still missing, and I have a feeling it's the piece that changes everything." Liana left the bistro first, heading back to the Gramercy and the life she'd been living as Adrian's mistress. Serena waited 15 minutes, then left in the opposite direction, her mind already running through scenarios and contingencies. This was it, the end game. Everything she'd been building towards since Christmas Eve when her world had shattered. Victor Marino thought he was so clever, thought he'd orchestrated the perfect coup, thought he'd eliminated every obstacle between himself and power. But he'd made one critical error. He'd underestimated the woman he'd tried to destroy, and Serena Valente was about to teach him exactly how costly that mistake would be. The meeting with Victor was set for Wednesday evening at a private club in Tribeca, the kind of place where membership cost 6 figures and discretion was guaranteed. Liana had done her job perfectly, painting Serena as broken and desperate, ready to accept any terms just to make the nightmare end. Victor had taken the bait. Serena spent the days leading up to the meeting preparing. She met with Marcus to finalize the failsafe documents. She visited Dr. Okonkwo for another ultrasound. 9 weeks now, everything's still progressing normally. She reviewed Rachel's report until she had every detail memorized. And she rehearsed her performance until it was flawless. Because that's what this would be. A performance, the greatest con she'd ever attempted. On Wednesday, she dressed carefully in a dove-gray suit that looked expensive but subdued. Minimal jewelry, hair pulled back, makeup that suggested exhaustion barely concealed. She needed to look like a woman at the end of her rope, not a woman planning an ambush. The club was all dark wood and leather, oil paintings of hunting scenes on the walls, the kind of aggressive masculinity that made Serena's skin crawl. A hostess led her to a private room on the second floor where Victor and Liana were already waiting. Victor Marino was in his late 40s, handsome in a cold, predatory way, dark hair going silver at the temples, sharp features, eyes that missed nothing. He stood when Serena entered, all false courtesy. Mrs. Valente, thank you for coming. Let's skip the pleasantries, Serena said, taking the chair across from him. You wanted to talk, so talk. Victor smiled, settling back into his seat. Liana sat beside him, her face carefully neutral, playing her role perfectly. Your sister tells me you've had a change of heart, that you're ready to be reasonable about the divorce. I'm ready to stop fighting a battle I can't win, Serena said. You've made your point. I'm outmatched, outmaneuvered, and out of options, so yes, I'm ready to sign the papers and walk away. Just like that? After weeks of resistance? Just like that. I'm tired, Mr. Marino. Tired of fighting, tired of being afraid, tired of wondering when the other shoe is going to drop. So tell me what you want from me, and let's get this over with. Victor studied her, looking for the trick, the angle. Serena kept her expression defeated, her shoulders slightly slumped, every inch the broken woman he expected. I want you to sign the divorce agreement by Friday. No more delays, no more lawyer games. I want you to take the settlement and leave New York. Permanently. Leave New York? Serena let surprise color her voice. That wasn't part of the original terms. Consider it an addendum. Adrian needs a clean break. Having you in the same city, running into you at events or restaurants or society functions, it would be awkward. Better for everyone if you start fresh somewhere else. And if I refuse? Victor's smile turned cold. Then we go back to our previous arrangement, the one where I stop being patient and start being creative. And trust me, Mrs. Valente, you don't want to see my creativity in action. Serena let the silence stretch, as if she were considering. Finally, she nodded slowly. Fine, I'll leave New York. But I want assurances. I want it in writing that you'll leave me alone, that there won't be any accidents or unfortunate incidents after I'm gone. You have my word. Your word isn't worth much to me. I want documentation. You're in no position to make demands, Victor interrupted, his voice hardening. You take what you're offered and be grateful you're getting out of this alive. There it was. The threat, barely veiled. Serena let fear flicker across her face, let her hands tremble slightly as she clasped them in her lap. All right, she whispered. All right, I'll sign. I'll leave. Just promise me this ends. Promise me I can have a life somewhere far from here. You have my promise. Sign the papers, leave the city, and you'll never hear from any of us again. Serena nodded, looking down at her hands. Let Victor think he'd won. Let him savor this moment of victory. Then she looked up, and her entire demeanor changed. The fear vanished. The defeat evaporated. What remained was cold, focused rage. There's just one problem with your plan, Victor. His smile faltered. What? I'm pregnant. The words fell like bombs into the quiet room. Victor's face went blank with shock. Liana's eyes widened. She'd known this moment was coming, but the reality was still stunning. You're lying, Victor said, but his voice lacked conviction. Serena pulled an envelope from her purse and slid it across the table. Ultrasound photos, dated, verified, 9 weeks along, due in July. Adrian's child. The heir you were so certain would never exist. Victor snatched up the envelope, pulling out the images. His hands shook slightly as he studied them. This changes nothing, he said, but Serena could hear the panic creeping into his voice. It changes everything. The prenup has specific provisions for children, generous provisions. Adrian won't divorce me now. Can't divorce me. Not without looking like a monster who abandoned his pregnant wife. And you know what that means, don't you, Victor? What? It means your entire plan collapses. No divorce, no distracted, grief-stricken Adrian, no vote of no confidence at the family council meeting, because Adrian Valente, ruthless crime boss, might cheat on his wife, but he'd never abandon his unborn child. Not when that child represents everything he's been trying to achieve for years. Victor's face had gone pale. You manipulative bitch. I learned from the best. Serena leaned forward. But here's the really interesting part. Want to know how I figured out your plan? Want to know how I learned about the vote, the conspiracy, the money you've been skimming? Serena, Liana started, fear in her voice. It's all right, Serena said, not taking her eyes off Victor. He needs to hear this. Needs to understand exactly how thoroughly he's lost. She pulled out her phone and set it on the table. On the screen was a recording app, the red light blinking, recording their entire conversation. You've been so focused on me, on Adrian, on your grand scheme to take over the Valente family, that you forgot to watch your own back. You trusted people you shouldn't have. You made payments that could be traced. You had communications that could be decrypted. And most critically, you threatened the wrong woman. Victor lunged across the table, grabbing for the phone. But Serena was faster, snatching it back and standing. "That's just a copy," she said calmly. "The original, along with 80 pages of financial records documenting your embezzlement, your conspiracy, and your plans to kill me and overthrow Adrian, is currently in the possession of my attorney, with instructions to deliver it to the FBI, the NYPD, and every major newspaper in New York if anything happens to me." "You have no idea what you're doing," Victor hissed. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." "I know exactly who I'm dealing with. A middle management criminal who got too ambitious, who thought he could outsmart everyone, who made the fatal mistake of underestimating his opponent." Victor turned to Liana. You told her everything. You betrayed me." "She blackmailed me," Liana said, her voice shaking but holding firm. "She's my sister. What did you expect?" "I expected loyalty. I expected—" Victor stopped, his hand moving toward his jacket. "I wouldn't," Serena said quietly. "We're in a private club with security cameras in every hallway. You pull a weapon, you use it on me, and you'll never make it out of the building. Is that really how you want this to end?" Victor's hand froze. For a long moment, the three of them stood in tense silence, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down like a physical force. "What do you want?" Victor finally asked. "I want you to withdraw from the conspiracy. I want you to cancel whatever you had planned for the family council meeting. And I want you to disappear, retire, resign your position, leave New York and never come back. And if I don't, then I go to Adrian with everything, every document, every recording, every piece of evidence Rachel Kim compiled, and I let him deal with you the way he deals with traitors in his organization." Serena's voice hardened. "You know how that ends, Victor. You've ordered those endings yourself." Victor's jaw clenched. "He'll never believe you. He'll think you're lying to get back at him for the affair." "Will he? When I show him proof of the 8 million you've stolen? When I show him the payments you've made to buy loyalty? When I play him recordings of you threatening his wife and unborn child?" Serena shook her head. "You're done, Victor. The only question is whether you go quietly or whether I destroy you publicly. You'd be signing your own death warrant. The organization doesn't forgive betrayal. I'm not betraying anyone. I'm protecting my family, my husband, my child, and I'm removing a cancer that would have destroyed everything Adrian built." She paused. "Make your choice, exile or execution. But make it now." Victor looked between Serena and Liana, calculating odds, weighing options. Serena could see the moment he realized he'd lost, could see the moment his arrogance crumbled into survival instinct. "Fine," he said through gritted teeth. "I'll leave, I'll resign, I'll disappear." "Not good enough. I want it in writing, a formal resignation letter to Adrian, effective immediately, citing personal reasons. No mentions of our conversation. No threats, no implications. Just a clean exit. And the evidence? What happens to Rachel Kim's report? It stays with my attorney. Insurance. If you ever come back to New York, if you ever threaten me or my family, if you ever contact Adrian or Liana or anyone connected to us, that report goes public. And then you'll have more to worry about than just Adrian Valente." Victor pulled out his phone with shaking hands and began typing. Serena watched as he composed the resignation letter, as he sent it to Adrian's email, as he showed her confirmation that it had been delivered. "There," he said. "Done. Happy now?" "Ecstatic. One more thing." "What?" "Queenside. Tell me who your partner is, who else was in on this conspiracy." Victor's expression twisted with something like satisfaction. "You haven't figured that out yet, with all your investigating and your clever lawyer tricks?" "Tell me." "No, that's one secret I'm keeping. Let it drive you crazy wondering. Let it keep you up at night knowing there's someone still out there who knows what we planned." Serena stepped closer, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "Victor, I'm giving you one chance to walk away from this. One chance to disappear with your life intact. Don't make me regret my mercy by playing games." "It's not a game. It's survival. Because if I give up Queenside, if I expose my partner, then I have nothing left to bargain with. Nothing to keep me alive if you or Adrian decide I'm too much of a liability after all. He had a point. Serena's mind raced through the implications. Queenside was still out there, still unidentified, still potentially dangerous. But Victor was right. If she pushed too hard, if she demanded too much, he might decide he had nothing to lose by going down fighting. Fine, she said. Keep your secret. But know this, I will find out who Queenside is. And when I do, they'll face the same choice you're facing now, exile or exposure. Victor grabbed his coat and moved toward the door, but he paused at the threshold, looking back at Serena with something like grudging respect. You're tougher than I thought, he said. Smarter, too. If things had been different, if you'd been born into this world instead of marrying into it, you might have been formidable. I am formidable, Serena replied. You just didn't notice until it was too late. Then he was gone, footsteps echoing down the hallway, leaving Serena and Liana alone in the private room. Liana collapsed into her chair, looking like she might be sick. Did that really just happen? Did we really just threaten Victor Marino and live to tell about it? We did, because he's smart enough to know when he's beaten. Serena sat down across from her sister, suddenly exhausted. Are you okay? I don't know. I feel like I'm going to throw up, or pass out, or both. That's adrenaline. It'll pass. What happens now? Do I go back to Adrian? Do I keep pretending? Serena looked at her sister, really looked at her, for the first time since Christmas Eve without the filter of anger and betrayal. That depends, she said slowly. Are you in love with him? Really in love? Or was it all just part of Victor's manipulation? Liana's eyes filled with tears. I don't know anymore. Maybe in the beginning it was just survival. But somewhere along the way, he's kind to me, Serena. He listens when I talk. He makes me feel like I matter. He made me feel that way too, once. I know, and I hate myself for it, for taking something that was yours, for hurting you, for... Stop! Serena held up a hand. We don't have time for guilt and apologies right now. We can deal with our relationship later. Right now, I need to know if you can keep acting, if you can continue the affair until I'm ready to reveal my pregnancy to Adrian. Why? Why delay? You have leverage now. You could tell him tonight. Because I need to control the narrative. Need to make sure Adrian learns about the baby from me in the right context at the right moment. If I tell him now, while he's still with you, while the divorce is still pending, it becomes messy, complicated. But if I wait until after Victor is gone, until after the family council meeting, until after the immediate crisis is resolved, then I can tell him on my terms. And what about me? What happens to me in your grand plan? That depends on what you want. Do you want Adrian, really want him, or do you want to be free of all this? Liana wiped at her tears. I want to not be terrified all the time. I want to sleep through the night. I want to make my own choices instead of having them forced on me by men with guns and money and power. Then walk away. End the affair. Tell Adrian you can't do this anymore. Tell him whatever you need to tell him. But get out, Liana. Get out before you're in so deep you can't find your way back. And you? What about you and Adrian? Serena touched her stomach, feeling the life growing there. Adrian and I are bound together now, by this child, by 10 years of history, by the fact that, like it or not, we're stronger together than apart. I don't know if we'll ever get back what we lost. But I do know that my baby needs a father, needs the protection and legacy that comes with being Adrian Valente's heir. So I'll do whatever it takes to make that happen. Even if it means forgiving him? Even if it means learning to live with what can't be forgiven. They sat in silence for a moment, two sisters who'd been strangers for too long, finally seeing each other clearly. I'm sorry, Liana said quietly, for all of it, for being weak, for making terrible choices, I know. And someday maybe I'll be ready to forgive you, but not today. Today, I just need you to help me finish this. Liana nodded. What do you need me to do? Go back to Adrian. Act normal. Don't mention Victor's resignation until he brings it up. And when the family council meeting happens next week, be ready, because everything's about to change. The family council meeting was held in a private estate in Westchester, a sprawling property that had been in the Valente family for 3 generations. Serena had been to 2 of these meetings before, Both times as Adrian's wife, expected to be seen but not heard, decorative but silent. This time would be different. Adrian had been shocked by Victor's sudden resignation, had called Serena, the first time they'd spoken directly in over a week, to ask if she knew anything about it. "Why would I know anything about Victor's personal decisions?" she'd asked innocently. "Because the timing is suspicious. Because Victor's been my right hand for 15 years and he suddenly decides to retire the week before our quarterly meeting. Because you've been acting strange and I can't shake the feeling that you're involved somehow." Maybe he just realized it was time to move on. People do that, Adrian. They reevaluate their lives and make changes. Not people like Victor. Not without a reason. Then maybe you should ask him yourself instead of interrogating your pregnant wife. Silence. Complete, shocked silence. "What did you just say?" Adrian's voice had gone very quiet. "You heard me? I'm pregnant. 9 weeks. Due in July. Your child, in case you were wondering." More silence. Then, "We need to talk. In person. Tonight." "No. Not tonight. Not until after the family council meeting. I have things to say to you, Adrian. Important things. But they need to be said in front of the right people at the right time." "Serena, if you're pregnant, if this is real, then everything changes. The divorce is still happening, unless you can give me a reason to reconsider. Unless you can prove to me that you're the man I thought I married instead of the man who betrayed me with my sister. I can explain about Liana. I can save it for the meeting. You'll want witnesses for what I'm about to tell you. Trust me." She'd hung up before he could protest, leaving him with more questions than answers, leaving him off balance and uncertain, exactly where she needed him. The meeting was called to order at 7 p.m. in the estate's library, a room lined with leather-bound books and portraits of dead Valentes. 15 men sat around a massive oak table, captains, advisors, the power structure of the entire organization. And at the head of the table, Adrian Valente, looking dangerous and barely controlled. Serena arrived unannounced, walking into the library like she owned it, ignoring the shocked expressions and murmured objections. "Mrs. Valente," Christopher Hayden stood, attempting to intercept her. "This is a closed meeting, family business only." "I am family," Serena said calmly, "and I have information that affects this business. So sit down, Christopher, and let me speak." Adrian's eyes were locked on her, ice blue and unreadable. "Let her talk." The room fell silent. Serena walked to the front, standing beside Adrian's chair, facing the assembled men. "Most of you know me as Adrian's wife. Some of you think you know why I'm here, to contest the divorce, to make a scene, to be dramatic. You're wrong. I'm here because there was a conspiracy, a plan to overthrow Adrian Valente and seize control of this organization. And I'm here to tell you who was behind it." That got their attention. Every man in the room leaned forward, suddenly focused. "Victor Marino," Serena continued, "has been planning a coup for the past 6 months. He's been embezzling money from family operations. Over $8 million funneled through offshore accounts. He's been making payments to people in this room, buying their loyalty, preparing them to vote against Adrian when the time came." "That's ridiculous," someone said. "Victor resigned. He's gone." "He resigned because I gave him a choice, exile or exposure. He chose exile. But the conspiracy was real, and I have proof." She pulled out copies of Rachel's report and began distributing them around the table. Watched as men read through the financial records, the communication logs, the documented evidence of Victor's betrayal. "Holy shit," someone muttered. "This is real." "It's real," Serena confirmed. Victor Marino was planning to call for a vote of no confidence at this meeting. He was planning to present Adrian as weak, distracted, unfit to lead. And he was planning to take power by force if the vote didn't go his way. Adrian stood slowly, his face carved from ice. Who helped him? Who in this room took his money? 3 men shifted uncomfortably. Carlo Rossetti, Jimmy Delgado, Vincent Carbone. The same names Rachel had identified. "Is this true?" Adrian asked them directly. Carlo Rossetti stood, his face pale. "I took meetings with Victor. He talked about succession planning, about what would happen if something happened to you. But I swear, Adrian, I never agreed to move against you. I never—" "You took his money," Adrian interrupted. "The report shows payments. Consulting fees, he said they were legitimate, said you'd approved them." I approved nothing. Adrian's voice could have frozen hell. You took money from a man planning to kill me and you claim innocence? The room erupted in shouting, accusations, denials. Serena let it play out for a moment before raising her voice. Enough. The three of you will return every cent Victor paid you. You'll resign from your positions. And you'll be grateful that Adrian's giving you the chance to walk away instead of ending up in the Hudson. Is that understood? The three men nodded, chastened and terrified. Adrian turned to Serena, his expression complex. How did you find all this? How did you... I hired a private investigator. I followed the money. I did what you've always said I was good at. I found the truth. Serena met his eyes. And I did it because despite everything, despite the affair and the betrayal and the divorce papers, you're still my husband, still the father of my child. And I wasn't going to let Victor Marino destroy you without a fight. Something shifted in Adrian's face, something that looked almost like the man she'd married 10 years ago. You're really pregnant, he said quietly. I'm really pregnant. 9 weeks. The baby you've been trying to have for 3 years. The heir you married me to give you. It finally happened, and then you asked for a divorce. The room had gone silent again, everyone watching this private moment play out in public. I didn't know, Adrian said. Would it have mattered if you had? Would you have stayed faithful? Would you have chosen me over Liana? I don't know. But I'd like the chance to find out. I'd like the chance to be the man you deserve instead of the man I've become. Serena wanted to believe him, wanted to fall into his arms and pretend the past 6 weeks had never happened. But she'd learned too much, seen too much, become too much to settle for easy forgiveness. Then prove it, she said. Prove that you can be that man. Prove that this baby will have a father who honors his commitments. Prove that I wasn't wrong to protect you when I could have let Victor destroy you and walked away clean. Adrian reached for her hand. This time, she let him take it. I will, he promised. Whatever it takes, however long it takes. I will prove it to you. Good. Because I'm not signing those divorce papers. I'm not leaving New York. And I'm not raising this child alone. We're going to figure out how to be married again, how to trust again, how to build something real instead of something convenient. And Liana is going to confess publicly in front of everyone who matters. She's going to own what she did, and then she's going to leave New York and never come back. As if summoned, the library door opened. Liana stood there, looking small and frightened but determined. I'm ready, she said quietly. I'm ready to tell the truth. Serena nodded. Then tell it. Over the next hour, in front of Adrian and the family council and Serena herself, Liana confessed everything. The blackmail, the affair, her role as Victor's spy, the manipulation and the lies and the terror that had driven her choices. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she finished, tears streaming down her face. I don't deserve it. I'm just asking for the chance to leave, to start over somewhere far from here, to never hurt anyone in this family again. Adrian's face was unreadable. Finally, he spoke. You're exiled. Permanently. You'll leave New York by the end of the week. You'll never contact anyone in my family again. You'll never speak about what happened here. And if you break these terms, if you ever come back, you won't like what happens. Liana nodded, accepting the sentence. She looked at Serena one last time. I'm sorry, she whispered, for everything. I know, Serena said, and found to her surprise that she meant it. Goodbye, Liana. Her sister left without another word, the door closing behind her with quiet finality. The family council meeting ended shortly after. Men filed out, subdued and shaken by everything they'd learned. By the time the room emptied, only Serena and Adrian remained, standing on opposite sides of the oak table. You saved me, Adrian said finally. You could have let Victor succeed, could have let me be overthrown and killed. Instead, you fought for me. Why? Because you're my husband, because you're the father of my child, and because somewhere under all the mistakes and betrayals, I still remember the man I fell in love with, the man who looked at me across a ballroom and changed my life. I'm not that man anymore. No, you're not. And I'm not the woman you married. We've both changed, both been broken and rebuilt. But maybe that's okay. Maybe we can be something new together, something stronger. Adrian walked around the table until he stood in front of her, close enough to touch but not touching. Not yet. I love you, he said. I never stopped loving you. I just forgot how to show it, forgot how to be the man you needed. And Liana? Was a mistake, a terrible, selfish mistake. I was angry and frustrated, and I blamed you for things that weren't your fault. I made you invisible because I couldn't face my own failures. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Serena. She looked up at him, searching his face for truth, for sincerity, for some sign that this was real and not just another manipulation. What she found was a man who'd been humbled, who'd faced his own mortality and his own mistakes and come out the other side changed. I can't promise I'll forgive you quickly, she said. I can't promise it won't take years to rebuild what you destroyed. But I can promise that I'll try. For our child. For the future we could still have. I'll try. That's all I ask. Adrian pulled her into his arms, and Serena let herself lean into his embrace, let herself feel for the first time in weeks, like maybe they'd survive this after all. There's still one problem, she murmured against his chest. What? Queen sighed. Victor's partner. We still don't know who it is. Adrian pulled back slightly, looking down at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. I know who it is. What? How? Because I've been paying attention. Because I've been watching my organization the way I should have been watching it all along instead of being distracted by my own drama. He paused. It was Vincent Carbone, my attorney. Serena's mind raced. Vincent Carbone, the family lawyer. The man who'd been in every meeting, who'd known every secret, who'd had access to everything. Are you sure? I'm sure. The encrypted communications, the business hour patterns, the inside knowledge, it all points to him. And when I confronted him after you exposed the conspiracy, he confirmed it, tried to justify it by saying he thought I was making bad decisions, that Victor would be better for the family. What did you do to him? What I do to all traitors. He's gone, permanently. And the message has been sent. Betray me, and there are consequences. Serena shivered slightly, reminded once again of exactly what kind of world she'd married into. But she didn't pull away, didn't flinch, because this was her world now too, and she'd proven she could navigate it, could even dominate it when necessary. So it's over, she said. The conspiracy is finished. Victor is gone. The traitors are dealt with. We can move forward. We can move forward, Adrian agreed. But there's one more thing we need to address. What? He dropped to one knee in front of her, still holding her hands, looking up with an expression of complete vulnerability. Marry me again, he said. Not a courthouse wedding this time, a real wedding, in front of everyone who matters. Let me prove to the world that you're my wife, my partner, my equal. Let me show you that I mean every promise I'm making. Serena looked down at him, this powerful, dangerous man kneeling before her, and felt something inside her chest crack open. Not breaking, opening, making room for possibility. Ask me again in a year, she said softly, when the baby is born, when we've had time to rebuild, when I know for certain that this is real, and not just guilt or obligation or fear of being alone. A year, Adrian repeated, standing and pulling her close again. I can wait a year. I can wait however long it takes. Good. Because I'm not making this easy for you. You're going to have to earn me back. Earn us back. One day at a time. I wouldn't expect anything less. They stood together in the quiet library, holding each other. Two people who'd been to hell and back, contemplating a future that was uncertain but possible. 1 year later, Serena stood in front of a mirror in her parents' estate. The same estate where everything had started to unravel on that terrible Christmas Eve. But now, in late summer sunshine, everything felt different, felt possible. She was wearing ivory, not white, that ship had sailed. A simple, elegant dress that accommodated her post-pregnancy figure. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, the way Adrian liked it. And in her arms was the reason for all of this. The reason she'd fought and survived and refused to quit. Matteo Adrian Valente. 6 weeks old. Perfect in every way. You ready? Her mother asked, adjusting Serena's veil. I'm ready. The ceremony was small, just family and the few friends who'd stuck by her through everything. Marcus was there, looking pleased with himself for helping orchestrate her survival. Rachel Kim had sent a gift with a note that just said, "Congratulations, you earned this." And at the front of the room, waiting with an expression of joy and nervousness and love, was Adrian. He'd kept every promise, spent the year proving himself, gone to therapy, actual therapy, which was almost unheard of in his world, stepped back from some of his more violent operations, started transforming parts of the family business into legitimate enterprises, created a foundation in Mateo's name to help women and children escaping domestic violence. He'd become, slowly and with great effort, the man Serena had always believed he could be. The ceremony was brief. New vows, spoken with weight and meaning and the knowledge of exactly what they were promising: to love and honor and cherish, to protect and support and choose each other every day, despite the scars and the history and the knowledge of how badly they could hurt each other. When Adrian kissed her, when he held his son for the first time as a married man, Serena felt something she hadn't felt in over a year: hope. Not the naive hope of her first wedding, but something harder, something that had been tested and survived, something real. "I love you," Adrian whispered, Mateo sleeping peacefully between them. "I love both of you, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret giving me this second chance." "You better," Serena replied, "because I didn't claw my way through hell to settle for anything less than everything." He laughed, and it was the sound of relief and joy, and a man who knew exactly how lucky he was. Later, at the reception, as Serena danced with her husband while her mother held her sleeping son, she caught sight of her reflection in the ballroom windows. She looked different than she had a year ago, stronger, fiercer, more herself than she'd ever been. She'd lost so much: her naivety, her illusions, her sister, the simple belief that love was enough. But she'd gained more, gained strength and cunning, and the knowledge that she could survive anything, that she could fight battles and win wars and protect what mattered most. Her phone buzzed in her clutch, a text from an unknown number. "Congratulations on the wedding and on your victory. You earned both. V. Victor." Still alive, still watching from whatever exile he'd chosen, still acknowledging in his way that she'd beaten him. Serena deleted the message without responding. Victor Marino was the past, a ghost, a reminder of how close she'd come to losing everything, but she hadn't lost. She'd won. And as Adrian spun her across the dance floor, as their son slept peacefully in her mother's arms, as their future stretched out before them full of possibility and second chances, Serena Valente knew one thing with absolute certainty: she would never be invisible again, never be underestimated, never be the weak link that men like Victor Marino could exploit. She was a mother now, a wife who'd earned her place through blood and cunning and sheer force of will, a woman who'd stared down death and conspiracy and betrayal and emerged victorious. And in a world ruled by loyalty and fear and power, she'd proven the most dangerous truth of all: hell hath no fury like a mother protecting her child. The music swelled, the lights glittered, and Serena smiled, not the careful, composed smile she'd worn for so many years, but a real smile, fierce and free and full of the knowledge that she'd not just survived her darkest moment, she'd conquered it.